Ariana Grande is in big trouble for destroying a family, and this isn't the first time that she's cheated or stolen someone else's partner.
So here's the full story about how Ariana is usually the other woman, or how she apparently cheated on every guy she's ever dated.
She had an affair with the actor who plays Buck, Ethan Slater. He was with his wife at the time, and she was with her husband at the time.
But unfortunately, there is a long history of Ariana jumping from relationship to relationship with people that were also in relationships. And people are starting to say that Ariana is a homewrecker.
You kind of crave when you grow up the happily ever after. The one is the one is the one. So you ignore all these issues and you kind of, you cling on to that fairy tale.
We all know the classic tale. Once upon a time there lived a little princess who was innocent and sweet and beautiful. But alas, though the little princess was beautiful and adored by many, she was not content, for she always dreamed of her one true love to make her complete, and only then would she live happily ever after. Luckily for the little princess, it just so happened that a brave, strong and handsome prince appeared to solve all her problems, and as soon as he saw the little princess, he immediately fell madly in love with her because she was innocent and beautiful and needed to be rescued, and so he rode in on his white horse and made her feel like the beautiful, special treasure that she was. And so the princess immediately married him, and there was celebrating throughout the kingdom, and the beautiful princess and the handsome prince rode away together into the sunset to be happy forever. The end. Except, not really the end, because life still continued after the wedding, and the high of the novelty gradually began to fade until one morning the little princess woke up and started to feel dissatisfied. And then one day a king and a queen from a neighbouring kingdom came for a state visit. And when the king's eye began to wander to her rather than his queen, it gave the little princess that thrilling feeling she'd once had with the prince. After all, when you're so beautiful that you can entice another man away from his wife, well, isn't that all the sweeter than attention from your own husband? And suddenly the princess had found her happy ending again, with the king whispering promises in her ear of how he'd shower her with jewels and give up his queen if only she'd return to his kingdom with him. And so, in the middle of the night, the little princess crept into the king's bed because she was completely shameless, and that morning they fled on the king's horse, leaving their spouses behind and ready to live together happily ever after, or at least until another married man came along to make her feel special. But until then, they probably had at least a few months of the honeymoon period before they started to get bored of each other. The end. On a completely unrelated note, apparently Ariana Grande keeps stealing other people's husbands.
Does this person think they're in James Bond? The Authentic Observer does sound like the kind of video title.
Espionage. Danger. Classified information. Spies. Remember when Vorsh said I was cosplaying as a Bond character? I'm finally embracing my true identity. Laugh all you want, ha ha ha. You know what isn't a joke? Being exposed on the internet. Having your personal information up for sale is enough to make one feel quite naked. I found my friend's full legal name and address after doing a quick Google search. She had no idea her information was that easily accessible. Terrifying. That's why today's video is sponsored by Aura. I know what you're thinking. Galatea, this is new. Are you actually taking a sponsorship? Yes, because I think this one is really worth it. When you're on the internet, it's always important to use protection. Aura shows users which data brokers are selling their information and automatically submits opt-out requests. Data brokers could sell your information and lead to you being targeted by scammers. They could access information such as your full name, address, email, relatives, health records. Darling, it's all out there. Recently, AT&T revealed that over 73 million customer records, both existing and former customers, were released on the dark web. They recommend those affected use strong passwords, monitor account activity, and consider credit freezes or fraud alerts from credit bureaus. Well, Aura does all of this, conveniently avoiding having to download several different apps just because a company couldn't keep your data secure. Not everyone can find a dashing spy to save the day, but with Aura doing the hard work of keeping you safe, you won't have to. Keep it hush-hush, under wraps. Stay mysterious and stay fabulous. Some information is best left only to intimate associates. So you can go to aura.com/authenticobserver. The link is down below in the description to start your 2-week free trial. Thank you very much to Aura for sponsoring this video. Shaken, not stirred.
Okay, so this whole situation is actually incredibly fascinating. She does, according to rumour, have a pattern of getting seriously involved with men already in relationships. I think it's only one husband at this point. I believe most of her collection prior to this consisted of other women's boyfriends and the odd fiancé. So this is the jewel in the crown, really. Yes, it is trashy celebrity gossip. Yes, alright, okay. And I'd be lying if I said that wasn't also interesting. However, this whole scenario and how Ariana Grande has behaved, or at least how she's appeared to behave and is presented as behaving in the media, is a great opportunity to talk about the Disneyfication of romance. Women still stuck in immature princess mentality and how that's leading to learned helplessness, victimhood, and damsel in distress behaviour patterns. Also, I think you could make that argument. So what are the problems with an unconscious belief that a man is going to come along and solve all your problems and rescue you and you'll be happy forever? What's the issue with outsourcing your happiness and becoming a passive force in your own life? Might one become infantilized and entitled in equal measure if you're operating in such a paradigm? So what I'm not saying, and I want to be really clear about this, what I am not saying is that most or even many women are out there acting like Ariana Grande. However, I think some of the underlying issues that led to what we're seeing play out in her are fairly common feminine wounds, which is why I want to talk about this celebrity scandal. And by feminine wounds, I mean collective or shared insecurities, hurts, or false beliefs that a lot of women have, probably due to certain societal narratives or treatment going back centuries or further. We've been harsh on the red pillars and their idiotic and destructive interpretations of masculinity that they make excuses for. So let's move on to the idiotic and destructive feminine behaviours that people make excuses for. Or maybe I just want to talk about juicy gossip and need an intellectual reason to do it. You decide. The answer is both, by the way. I wanted to do both. What are you going to do? Do you like my outfit and background, by the way? I put so much effort into this. I'm a pop star. This is what pop stars wear. These are my Ariana Grande thigh-high boots. And I'm a pop star. This is my Ariana Grande oversized cardigan hoodie thing to make me look small. Like Ariana Grande. This is my stage performing outfit. I don't know if you can tell, but my face should be at least a couple of shades darker than my hand because I put self-tanner on, I put bronzer on, I've done the hair, I've done the makeup. Look at my pop star nails. Look at them, my fancy pop star sharp nails. Like the video, subscribe for my dedication to the role, guys. I'm an actor, what can I say? That's not true. I showed my mother this outfit and said, do I look like Ariana Grande? And she said, you look trashy. So, like the video, to compensate for disappointing my parents, I look like I'm ready to go on the whatever podcast and be called a 304 in this outfit. Tell you what. Oh, 10. 10 out of 10. Yeah, no, I'm a 10.
Would I fuck a guy who's making under 200K?
No way, not in Miami, not in Miami, sorry. No, that's like dusty.
You guys said I could promote my OnlyFans if I just came on here and played dumb, you know? Can I do that now?
Especially with this it's not a real mic. I clipped it to this. This is just to suit the pop star because I'm Ariana Grande, you know, it's a singer. So before we probably dive in, I do just want to make a massive disclaimer. Obviously, this is all my opinion, and most importantly, can we know for sure what Ariana Grande's personality is like? No, we can't. Yes, I'm using Ariana Grande as a springboard to talk about this topic. I think it makes it more easy to conceptualize, having a real life example. But is it possible that this whole thing has been a series of misunderstandings completely misinterpreted by the media, portraying her inaccurately? There's a chance of that. A chance that is ever fading, considering that she's never once outright denied any of the claims, to my knowledge. In one of her latest interviews, she claims the backlash she's receiving is because she's a woman rather than her own bad behaviour, and has just released a load of new songs that I would describe as petulant, and excusing cheating, and justifying and romanticising being a selfish person. But sure, there's a chance. Someone really needs to let Ariana know that it's not the patriarchy coming after her, it's other women once she gained a reputation as a homewrecker. You can't pretend to be a noble martyr for feminism while also enabling and being complicit in some of the worst male behaviours at the expense of other women. That's not what the suffragettes fought for, sweetheart. But I do want to make it clear that though I'm going to be talking a lot about her personality and behaviour, she might not be like this at all. If you like, take this as something of a character analysis of a fictional construct, because I'm sure there are significant differences between Ariana Grande, the brand and public persona, and Ariana Grande, the human individual, the person. But public persona is all that we have to go off, obviously, and I think it's kind of fair game, especially because it's so intimately tied to her art. She writes about personal stuff, she's addressed the backlash in multiple songs. Her response can basically be summed up as, I can do what I want. I'm so misunderstood. Nah, 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 nah. Aren't I so awesome and brave? Also, everyone is mean to me and I did nothing wrong. And she's also painted herself as a hero of girl power, so I think her persona is on the table for analysis and critique. So this video is obviously just going off who she presents herself as publicly, which may or may not align with who she really is. That's what I'm trying to say. My guess is there's probably a lot of crossover. So welcome back to my channel, everyone. I am Galatea, and this is Acis, my dearly departed. And today we'll be pondering the female version of Peter Pan syndrome. What happens when little girls don't want to grow up and stay dreaming of Disney princesses forever? Spoilt little princess syndrome, or Disney princess syndrome. Disney princess syndrome is the nicer way of saying it, but in Ariana's case, I think we can use the word spoilt. If you're going to write a song called The Boy Is Mine about another woman's husband, I'm going to treat you like you're a bratty 5-year-old. Fair is fair. So, I actually didn't know that Disney princess syndrome was already kind of a thing when I first started talking about it, but that's no surprise because it's basically fairly straightforward and is exactly how it sounds. Stepping away from Ariana Grande for a moment, let's explore how Disney princess syndrome sufferers might approach relationships. What happens when a little girl takes a Disney princess story literally and to heart? When she never matures past being a little girl and expects to be catered to and validated at the expense of everyone around her? What happens when she places all her worth and identity and idea of femininity in how desirable she is? What happens when she over-romanticizes everything to the point she's not going to stick around with someone when things are hard? If that's the case, you or someone you know might be suffering from Disney princess syndrome, where you expect everything to be perfect all the time and to be rescued all the time and constantly looking for someone to be your happily ever after. Like, for example, being in relationship after relationship pretty much since you were a teenager, and not just relationships, but happily ever afters. Engaged to Pete Davidson after only a few weeks, I think it was, with that breaking off only 4 months later. Then you're in another whirlwind relationship with another guy. You get as far as down the aisle this time, but then that marriage barely scrapes its way to the 2-year mark before you're already serious and in love with someone else. Now, don't get me wrong, people make mistakes, and getting engaged or married to someone and having it end fairly quickly doesn't mean that you're unable to be romantically happy. Sometimes you misjudge things, it doesn't work out, things went wrong. That's fair. But when it's a pattern of whirlwind romances really quickly turning serious, and then almost as quickly just falling apart before you're on to the next love of your life, that's enough that I think it's fair to start saying, hey, Maybe it's you. Maybe you are just too immature for a real relationship right now. Maybe you're just addicted to the high of the fantasy, to the excitement of a fairy tale romance, but quickly get bored when you really get to know someone and then reality kicks in. This isn't a comment on promiscuity, by the way. That's not what this point is about. It's about apparently being unable to hold down a long-term relationship, skipping from one relationship right to the next with little or no breaks in between, and getting infatuated with person after person really quickly. Because this is how it all seems to me. It reeks of infatuation. That's just my opinion. And infatuation is not love. If you're a serial monogamist, or as I prefer to call them, relationship hopper, when you're always in love with someone and engaged or married, but none of them last very long, there's probably deeper issues going on. Raise your hand if you've ever dated a relationship hopper. I have, briefly. They get overly invested very quickly, very lovey-dovey very quickly, but the whole time you're just thinking, are you actually interested in me, or are you just unable to be alone and infatuated with the idea of being in love, and I just happen to be the next exciting thing to project your rom-com fantasy onto? I think that most of them are addicted to the high of like the first year or so of a new relationship, making all sorts of promises about forever and how real their feelings are and how madly in love they are, but will peace out in search of the next thrill the moment that reality kicks in. And this is different from like dating. It's from someone who's dating. Do you get what I mean? Like very specific like thing. Relationship hoppers, like being really, you get what I mean? Like intensely in love with person after person. I feel like to them, loyalty and commitment and support and self-sacrifice, you know, signs of actually loving someone, as they claim to, are boring. That's not fireworks and sweet nothings and the excitement of the chase. Like Justin Wattpad Waller, he's an example, not of serial monogamy, because as he said in his own words, he's incapable of monogamy. Who knew being physically unable to restrain yourself was a sign of masculinity? Sounds like weakness to me. So not the monogamy part. But he is an example of an addiction to limerence, or the chase, loving the exciting new stages of a romance, you know, magic carpet rides and all that, without any of the responsibility. He's the stunted Peter Pan to Ariana's stunted little princess.
You kind of crave when you grow up the happily ever after. The one is the one is the one. So you ignore all these issues and you kind of, you cling on to that fairy tale.
If you're constantly falling in and out of love with different people, I don't believe that you are in love with the people. The people are irrelevant. You're in love with romance, and the people are merely tools to enable you to feel it. Tools to get to your end goal, which is the feelings, not them. It's not much different to a one-night stand. It's not about the person, it's about the pleasure. This is like, I feel the emotional version of that. Kind of. Like, the body could be anybody as long as they're doing grand gestures and telling you that you're wonderful. They are the replaceable emotional masturbatory aid. And once the novelty wears off and you start to get to know the real person, once they know you well enough to be able to point out your flaws rather than just whispering sweet nothings in your ear, well, at that point, you're probably getting a more accurate vision of yourself reflected back rather than the airbrushed enchantment. Oh no. To be confronted with your flaws. Once it gets a bit real, because you realise that you're both people and not fairy tale characters, well, you move on to someone else to validate yourself with, of course. Someone who's going to fill you with the exciting good feelings of how wonderful and desirable you are and tell you that you're perfect and never challenge you on anything. In my humble opinion, I think that's what's going on. But I'm just a YouTuber, so what the fuck do I know? If you're in and out of infatuations like that, then you are in love with romance, with the idea of fantasy, with an illusion. And once the clock strikes 12 and the carriage turns back into a pumpkin, you realise that dealing with people is hard sometimes. And Disney princesses don't do hard things because life should be perfect and everyone should love them. I think it's actually quite inward-looking, narcissistic and vain. Yeah, not about the other person. I said emotional masturbation for a reason. It's totally about yourself and how good they make you feel about yourself. Which isn't love. It's just like self-obsession in another guise, I think. That's my personal opinion. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a cynic. I'm actually a romantic at heart. I just don't think that flaky, inconsistent vanity is actually romantic. Sue me. I'm deep, guys. super deep. That's why I'm wearing this top. Look, if Elle Woods could wear pink and have depth to her character, then I can. Okay? It's bloody uncomfortable, I'll tell you what. I'm not a fan of being a pop star. I don't think I'd be good at it. I can't sing for a start. But yeah, what is it talking about? It's the self-obsession disguised as love. And what the, like, actual, like, you know, the vanity as opposed to love. Like, limerence or lust, whatever you want to call it. Or infatuation as opposed to love. It's like that quote from Captain Corelli's Mandolin, which I will now read, because as I said, I'm deep. I'm an intellectual. Remember when I said that before and Vorsh was mean to me about it? Well, I don't have weird whatever the hell on my computer, Vorsh. I've got quotes. Quotes from books and films, not inappropriate images of horses and allegedly very young girls. Who's the intellectual now? Not you, really. You're just a weirdo. So to quote, look, we need a little bit of education to balance out the outfit I'm wearing, okay? Love is a temporary madness. It erupts like an earthquake and then subsides. And when it subsides, you have to make a decision. You have to work out whether your roots have become so entwined together that it is inconceivable that you should ever part. Because this is what love is. Love is not breathlessness. It is not excitement. It is not the promulgation of promises of eternal passion. That is just being in love, which any of us can convince ourselves we are. Love itself is what is left over when being in love has burned away, and this is both an art and a fortunate accident. Your mother and I had it. We had roots that grew towards each other underground, and when all the pretty blossoms had fallen from our branches, we found that we were one tree, and not two. Doesn't sound very exciting, does it? But it is. There's your dose of education. Back to celebrity gossip. This is a good point. It's a lovely metaphor. Blossoms are pretty, but fleeting, and with no substance, you know? And they're wonderful. Blossoms, wonderful. Love them. There's some outside the window I'm looking at right now. They're pink. They're beautiful. Gorgeous. Apple blossoms. Who doesn't love apple blossoms? Oh, perfecto. They're wonderful. Don't get me wrong. But there needs to be roots there to hold them. Something real and not illusory. Illusory? You know what I mean? It's the word that means illusion-like. I can't say it. It's something real. Not the illusion me. Or they're essentially meaningless. And Disney sells the style in a million different movies, pretending it's the substance. And if you suffer from Disney princess syndrome, you keep chasing that to make you happy. After all, it worked for Cinderella. And then you wonder why you're left feeling hollow when the glitter fades, so you wander off to find your next fix. And hey, maybe Ariana has finally found the roots, the substance, not the style, the substance, the realness. Maybe she's finally found that with Ethan SpongeBob Slater. Stranger things have happened. Maybe. Doubt it. But maybe. Maybe this one will last. Maybe this is the one, guys. This could be the one. I mean, she was already singing in her songs, in the lyrics, about how people said she moved on too fast. And that was like a couple of years ago, before she even got married. And then before she's with this latest guy as well. You do move quick, Ariana, to be fair. I think they have a point when they say that. When people say that about you. Just a thought, darling. Just a thought. But hey, maybe this nerdy musical theatre kid, maybe he is the happily ever after that she has always been looking for, and she's grown out of infatuations, and this is genuine. Personally, I think it's more likely that he will be added to the conveyor belt of thank you, next, before long. Looking into Ariana's behaviour and also lots of her song lyrics, which I didn't know a huge amount about before this video, and I've now done my research. Looking at that, I think it just seems to be clear from her behaviour and her songs that she really is searching for that fairy tale romance. And part of me feels bad for her. If I could give her one piece of advice, though, it would be, I just don't think that you're going to find that happy ending in a man married to someone else, babe. But I digress. Just listen to her lyrics though about this. This was from before she got married. This was from, I don't know, like a few years ago. These lyrics here, quote, "One day I'll walk down the aisle. Only want to do it once real bad. Gonna make that shit last." So yeah, that was before her 2-year marriage ended in scandal, 2 divorces, and allegations of cheating. Those lyrics aged well. It seems contradictory that that line was in a song called Thank you, next. That might have been a clue about what the attitude that was leading you wrong there, Ariana. The clues are in your songs, they are. But herein, I think, the tragedy, because it is kind of a tragedy, to be honest, in a lot of ways, the tragedy of Ariana Grande, I think that's the problem that arises when you idealise the happily ever after, the fairy tale wedding and the riding off into the sunset. Because the problem is that there is a day after the wedding, and a day after that, and after that. There is no such thing as a happily ever after, not really. There can be lasting happiness, sure, I believe in that, but it's not the same thing as a happily ever after at the end of a fairy tale, all tied up neatly in a bow at the end. That's not real. There's a quote that perfectly sums that up, and I can no longer remember where this quote is from, and Google has no answers for me, but it goes something like this. Quote, "You're searching for things that do not exist. Beginnings and endings. There are no such things." If anyone knows where that quote is from, let me know. But that perfectly encapsulates this. It just feels a bit, this whole thing with her, it just feels a little bit like watching Ariana search for the end of the rainbow. You'll never find it. If you want a permanent happily ever after, you'll have to keep finding it with different people. Because, as I said before, there's always a day after riding off into the sunset. So if you want to keep reliving that moment, you've got to have it with different people. But then I think you miss out on the really good stuff that comes after the nice, frilly stuff, you know? Get what I mean? I don't know. That's what wise people say anyway. The wise people who've been through and lived through that, they say that. You listen to the wise people? Have you heard? Listen to some wise people. Not me. I'm not wise. I'm too young. Tell me I'm young. My brother said something very rude to me the other day about my age. I won't repeat it, but I was greatly offended. But you know, the wise people, you know, with grown-up children, those wise people, those wise people who lived a life. They've lived a life. They've had a long relationship. They've gone through the romance, the honeymoon stage, and they're like, you know, they're well into lifetimes of, you know, of the stuff that comes after that, and they're like, you know what, this stuff's actually pretty good. It's not as talked about, it's not as romanticized, but this stuff's all right. It's pretty nice. Listen, have you listened to the people, the wise people, the happily married old? I don't want to say old. Sorry, you're not old. The happily married older wise people with grown up children. They say things like that. So I don't know. They could be wrong. I don't know. I'm not that. I've not done it. But I'm just saying. I'm just repeating what I've heard them say. Blame them. But this other stuff, this obsession with the early stages. It's like, you know, when you're watching. This is what it is. You know when you're watching a really trashy show, right? And there's this will they, won't they couple who have a tumultuous love-hate, like friends, bestest enemies forever thing going on. And the chemistry is just off the charts. And the audience is willing them to get together. And when they finally do, it is boring. Very, very boring. And this only lasts for a few episodes before the writers have to break them up or throw in another love interest to keep the audience addicted to the show as they experience that high by proxy. One of the most notable examples of this that springs to mind is The Vampire Diaries or Gossip Girl, you know, where everyone is constantly switching partners and no one can ever be happy in a relationship for too long or it gets boring. Also, side note, these shows are made for teenagers. You know, the immature people who do immature things and who, Ariana Grande being in her 30s now, probably, everyone goes through a Gossip Girl stage in life, whether you actually watch Gossip Girl or not. The Vampire Diaries stage. The silly teenager stage. Just don't stay there. But yeah, that thing of like, you can't be in a relationship for too long. There's this other person on the show that you're falling in love with, and it's so, oh my god, and then the audience is bored of that, and it's, oh thank god, this person is their one true love now. That's not love. You don't actually care about that person or have any real connection with them. You're an addict to the nice brain juice feelings that you get from having a shiny new toy. And like any bratty child, you'll carelessly discard it when something newer and shinier comes along. It's falling in love with yourself through someone else's eyes. Again, and again, and again, and again. And if you're Ariana Grande, again. Sorry, that was really bitchy of me. Sorry, Ariana. Sorry, she doesn't care. She got loads of money. She's not watching this. But seriously, like, haven't they compared... I swear this is the thing. This is the real thing, right? Where they've compared, like, all those hormones that your brain gets sent in the early stages of a relationship, it's comparable to being on drugs. I'm pretty sure that's a true thing. That's a fact I just said. I hope I didn't just make that up. I'm pretty sure that's a real thing. Your rationality is impaired. You feel ecstatic. You act without thinking. You're a little bit addicted. You're basically high. So yeah, if you're addicted to just that stage, you're not in love. You might just be a junkie. Searching for your next fix. Isn't that glamorous? So yeah, Disney Princess Syndrome is placing the be-all and end-all on a relationship and never thinking much further beyond the happily ever after, as I said. It is thinking that when you meet your prince, that's when the story ends. There's peace and happiness forever, everything is always rainbows and sparkles, and you have this person next to you who always makes you feel good and makes life easier for you and fixes everything and you never have to try, and who constantly tells you that the sun shines out of where the sun don't shine, but on you it does, and you shit fairy dust. Disney Princess Syndrome is when you excessively dream of the one who will sweep you off your feet and solve all your problems and rescue you and defeat all your demons and make you happy forever and ever. And then you'll ride off into the sunset on his white horse while the animals sing. Again, to live happily ever after forever. It's just the end of the story. Don't think about it. Don't look too much past that. With Disney Princess Syndrome, there is a tendency to believe that all your issues, all your persistent, unhealthy patterns, all your unhappiness or lack of direction or self-hatred will be magically solved if only you could meet your Prince Charming. Then you would be happy. Suddenly, you would magically be different, everything would change, and you would feel good about yourself and be validated. Disney Princess Syndrome sufferers might be passive in life, outsourcing blame and responsibility to other people because you expect to be rescued. Like the princess staring longingly out the window of her tower, unable or unwilling to even try to change her circumstances, and instead staring at the horizon, dreaming of the prince who's going to break the door down and change her life and circumstances for her. Disney Princess Syndrome is when a girl is incapable of rescuing herself and is always looking for an outside source to do that for her. You know, like how the movies tell you. Disney Princess Syndrome is a lack of internal drive, waiting for everything to land in your lap. Disney Princess Syndrome is ignoring all the bad things and focusing only on pretty things that make you happy. It's running away from anything hard or uncomfortable because after all, you're a princess and life is a fairy tale and everything is wonderful in La La Land. Disney Princess Syndrome is infantilization. Sound familiar? You know, like being an adult woman with millions of dollars and licking a donut in a bakery that you never intended to buy just because you're a silly little girl who's so cute and goofy. Teehee. It's wanting to be babied, wanting to be rescued constantly, appearing overly vulnerable and fragile, and always and forever relying on others, yet never being stable enough or giving others the space to rely on you. Because you're just a little girl. You're just a pretty little girl, head empty, no thoughts. If this sounds like somewhat of a damning description, that's because I wrote that when I was feeling particularly judgmental. However, I think some of that, and I left it in for a reason. However, I think some of that comes from my own internal I don't think I'm wrong, but I also think some of the real dislike of it comes from my own internal conflict in some ways, which we will get to in a separate video. It's worth saying that as irritating as spoiled little princess syndrome can be, the self-infantilization, that is the part that really gets under my skin. Cannot stand that. The baby. Annoying as that is, it is a learned behaviour. It just so happens that it is an effective coping mechanism and way to deal with our society. And unfortunately, it is a behaviour that can often be rewarded in women. Particularly, I believe, in the entertainment industry, as a child star, as Grande was. Society can reward this behaviour. A lot of men sure as hell reward it. The helpless eyelash batting and the save me look is kryptonite for getting your own way. And I'm not saying that this is even conscious in women. I think most of the time it isn't, unless you're particularly devious and, I don't know, hellspawnish and selfish. But the fact is, conscious or not, that passivity is often encouraged in us. We have been promised all our lives that if we behave in that way, we will be rewarded. And the worst thing is, sometimes that is true, even in real life. The Disney archetypal story is everywhere. We've been fed them since we were toddlers, and our brains were absorbent and mushy. We've been taught to expect that everything is going to come together in one big final moment of being rescued when your life changes forever and you're swept up onto the white horse, and that's the end of the story. And all you had to do to achieve it was look pretty and smile sweetly and wait to be rescued. And that's it. You've cracked the code for a fulfilling life. Being super sweet and innocent and nice is also so heavily encouraged in young girls. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with those things. But I think when it's overly encouraged and women feel unable to deviate from that archetype of sweet innocence, well, they're still human, so they've got to express their more self-serving instincts in underhand ways. Those instincts don't just disappear because we're supposed to be angelic princesses who never assert ourselves and don't want to be a bother to anyone else. And I think that is where the manipulation, fake innocence, and performative victimhood comes in, to cover for the fact that you are indeed human and sometimes do bad things or get angry or want your own way. Or just want something. But if you feel you can't go at it directly, then things get a little bit manipulative, I think. Of course, one of the other coping mechanisms is that some women go to the other extreme to rebel against that. And I think that's where the abrasive stereotype of angry, demanding feminist comes from. Now, is that an excuse to trample all over people and be completely obnoxious? No, it's absolutely not. But I do think it probably comes from a place of wanting to assert their rights to have negative opinions and be selfish in a world that, if not having taught them the opposite as a kid, is confusing with mixed messages. And I know people are going to say, what are you talking about? The narrative is that women, now can be bold and brash and it's all about girl power. What the hell are you talking about with this women be demure and sweet thing? Sure. But that's still fairly recent. And most adult women today are still a product of all those things that I'm talking about. I am in my 20s, a young adult. And most of my childhood was still filled with the Disney princess messaging of sweetness and passivity and not causing trouble or rocking the boat. And by the way, I like a lot of the classic Disney princess movies. I think if you look at them symbolically or less literally and analytically, I think in that way, there's lots of good messaging in them and there's lots of great themes in them. And they're really great. They can have great examples of femininity and feminine strength. And I've defended this in the past before. And I've defended femininity and Cinderella, the film before. But I still think that they can contribute to that type of mentality. And I still stand by some of the criticisms that I made of Sleeping Beauty and Snow White. That really annoys people when I'm and Cinderella. I still think they were too passive in the original Disney things. I still think as a kid I still think they were too. I get it. I get what you're saying. The messaging, yes, they endured and they were sweet and they were but just a little bit more of a spine. I still stand by that. Just a little bit more. Just a little bit. I think the live action Cinderella walked that balance quite well of managing to have both. But anyway. That's another video I did. Watch that one if you want to hear me talk about that. But I think so. There's good. I'm not saying throw them all out, or I hate femininity. I'm not saying any of this. But I think that being the dominant and sometimes for little girls one of the only and consistent archetypal stories that we hear can contribute to learned passivity. And it's not just that, but it's also some of the environment and what people encourage and expect of you as well. Learn passivity. Someone will rescue you. Someone should rescue you. are entitled to being rescued. And that is the spoilt, entitled part of little princess syndrome creeping in there. Just at the end there, the entitled, yeah. I should be rescued. I am entitled to it. It's my right. Yeah. Now, as I said, there are nuances here. I know at the moment there's a lot of frustration with them allegedly changing the plot of Snow White, the Snow White remake, so she's not saved by the prince or falls in love with anyone anymore because feminism. And people are pissed off at, the boss bitch babe mentality striking again. And, sending the message that to fall in love is somehow anti-feminist, or to want rescuing or being gentle and feminine makes you somehow lesser. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is it is not good to be unable to help yourself. That doesn't mean that you have to be, an independent girl boss and never rely on anyone, or you can't fall in love or be in your hashtag soft girl era, whatever. But it does mean that being passive in your life and just waiting around to be rescued all the time is pretty bloody stupid, especially when it comes to your inner world. It's easier to save someone in a literal way, like catch them when they fall, fight the bad guy, pay off her student loans. All of that is easier than solving all of someone else's inner problems. All your demons, they're only yours, I'm afraid. And someone, they could help, but they can't do any of the work for you. Also, it's not a good thing to wait around for someone to save you in the outer world either. Because there's no guarantees. Like, sure, it'd be nice if a Prince Charming comes along at just the right moment to rescue you from the jaws of the beast, but it's unlikely. Prince Charming, he's busy. They're busy. Doing alpha male podcasts right now. They're not. That's not what they are. So you have to be able to trust and rely on yourself too, to get yourself out of difficulty. You have to be a functional, competent human being who can survive in the world by yourself with your big girl pants on. There's nothing wrong with being rescued. That's not what I'm saying. But sitting around waiting to be rescued without taking action, that's just impractical. And I think death to the soul. Also, by the way, just a side note, that mentality could also be how you get love bombed and tricked. If someone's coming along pretending to be a Prince Charming who can change your life, Andrew Tate, if it sounds too good to be true, like any con, it probably is. That's not to say that you can't meet someone amazing who seems like an absolute dream and really is an absolute dream. Hey, I'm no cynic, as I've said. But no one can rescue you from the perils and hardships of life, or fix your problems for you while you're a passive party, or protect you from everything, or keep you sheltered forever and ever and ever. That's what I'm getting at. Passivity makes you a victim, or in danger of becoming a victim, because you're allowing someone else to take full responsibility for you. That also means full control. And probably also means that you have a tendency to blame everyone but yourself for everything, because everyone else is always doing all the things. So this is where everything I was observing and writing about Disney Princess Syndrome crossed over with a book that I was reading at the time called Goddesses in Every Woman by Jean. And I didn't write down her two last names because I forgot what they were, and I don't have the book with me, and I forgot to add it to the script at the last minute. And I also struggled to pronounce her last two names. I'm going to put it up on the screen. We're going to call her Jean. I'm sorry. Can I call you Jean? We're informal here. Like we're friends. We're going to go with Jean. No disrespect meant. But she is a psychiatrist and Jungian analyst. I would love to go into more depth, but that's a video for another time because there is so much to be explored here. I really do love that book. But really briefly, she splits up female psychology into 7 core archetypes based on the Greek goddesses. And I noticed huge similarities between her description of Persephone, also known as the Eternal Maiden, and Disney Princess Syndrome. So quoting from that book now, if Persephone provides the structure of the personality, it predisposes a woman not to act, but to be acted on by others, to be compliant in action and passive in attitude. So Persephone woman, she really does kind of sound like a Disney princess. This stunted child as well, it is the only manifestation of femininity that podcasts like Fresh and Fit recognise as true femininity. What they fail to understand is what they are glorifying and demanding all women fit into that box of. They don't understand that that is an underdeveloped archetype. It is evidence of stunted growth. It is incomplete. Quoting again from this book about the Persephone archetype, quote,
The culture we live in also conditions girls to equate femininity with passive dependent behaviour. They are encouraged to act like Cinderella waiting for a prince to come, sleeping beauties waiting to be awakened. Passivity and dependency are the core problems for many women because the environment reinforces the archetype and thus other aspects of the personality do not develop. Firstly, I won't fully go into the book, but it's not like she neatly fits each woman into each archetype. The idea is that each woman has, to different extents, these different patterns of behaviour or archetypes within them to be more or less dominant. And from what I've said, Persephone being the eternal maiden, as you might guess, many teenage girls go through stages where they are very heavily Persephone, like in that archetype, in that behaviour pattern. Some teenage girls really, really strongly, way more strongly, and some not at all, and then some massively carry that through into adulthood. But as you imagine, that kind of passivity and dependency and being too much in the Persephone energy, it causes problems. This causes problems with setting boundaries, with being self-reliant, with wanting to please and not having a strong sense of your own identity. So this might sound to some red pillars, like their wet dream of a perfect, compliant and sweet wife. But what they fail to understand is, 1, being passive and agreeable doesn't mean obedient. She'll probably just manipulate you instead. And 2, being outwardly sweet is not the same as being truly kind. Not by a country mile. Just take a look at the sweet as honey Ariana Grande and contrast that with how she allegedly treats the people in her life. You can't really rely on princess archetype women because they can't really rely on themselves. They haven't decided who they are or what they want, and they certainly can't commit. Not to a partner, not to marriage, not to much. Not to an idea. Like children, casting once favoured toys away the minute they get bored or something more exciting comes along. So to quote again from the book about Persephone-type women, whatever they are doing, it doesn't seem for real. Their attitude is that of the eternal adolescent, indecisive about who or what they want to be when they grow up, waiting for something or someone to transform their lives. How does that sound as a description of Ariana's relationship history? So as I said, and as was said in the book, as Jean said in the book, I think this archetype of underdeveloped, immature femininity is often encouraged and rewarded in women as a whole, in different ways. And ironically, lots of red pillars are some of the biggest offenders of this, of encouraging and rewarding that kind of behaviour. If you want women to be helpless and dependent when it is convenient for you, they will also be helpless and dependent when it is inconvenient for you. I am going to do a more extensive video on the Persephone archetype because trust me, there is so much more and there's so much to get into and so much I think of women's identity and it's just so interesting. Yeah, anyway, I'm going to do a deep dive video that's more in the serious side of that. This is like the fun Ariana Grande celebrity gossip type side of the princess syndrome and that thing. And then if I want to get more into the archetypes and the just the real deep stuff of that, the Persephone thing. And I'm going to do a more extensive video on that. The Persephone thing. There's so much more. So subscribe if you want to keep it up to date. Go on, you want to. Subscribe. So I think that Disney princess syndrome or infantilized Persephone behaviour, they're really kind of one and the same. I think that is encouraged in women in many ways. But if I had to make a guess, my intuition tells me that growing up in the public eye as a very pretty child star, it's probably going to be encouraged 100-fold. Way more than the general population, than most women, than any woman would ever come across that level of encouragement into that archetype. That's my guess. And I'm just guessing, this is a guess. So this is talked about more in the book, Goddesses in Every Woman, with regards to the Persephone archetype. It goes into how people often respond to that archetype and what kinds of, traits is shown in that, basically. Basically, the point being is, it says in that book, if you're a little girl who might be especially pretty, or especially small, or appear especially fragile, people are motivated to baby you and protect you and infantilize you. Ariana Grande is and was all of those things. Especially pretty, especially small, and appears especially fragile. And so, look, when I was a kid, I was often smaller than other kids my age. Yes, I was shorter, but I was also just very small. I was very skinny. And I was also very, very shy. So this had mixed reactions in people. Not all, sometimes good, sometimes
terrible. But I am familiar, something that would crop up quite a lot, I'm familiar with provoking a protective response in a lot of adults. And honestly, even in some of my peers, even as a teenager, sometimes that would still happen. I think the combined skinniness with the shyness probably made me seem very fragile and thus innocent. People who actually knew me, they didn't do this, they didn't coddle me or infantilize me because they knew that I was fine and sometimes bad-tempered and perfectly capable. You know, I was quiet, I was timid and shy, but I was all right. But I get that a lot with people I just met. They would act sometimes like I was a lost lamb, and sometimes it'd be really quite extreme. So I think this is definitely true. There's truth there. People have a tendency to treat you like you're more helpless or naive than you are. Teachers might assume that you're well-behaved and innocent, whether you are or not. I just looked very young and probably a little lost. Someone said that to me recently. I met a friend of a friend. And I'd not met them before, but they recognised me, they knew who I was. Because I'd been described, and they said, you just looked lost, wandering around. So maybe I still just, I think it just permanently confused expression on my face, so. But yeah, I think the appearance of being small or fragile or a little bit helpless, you can get that response from people. Sometimes people hate it, sometimes you get a really negative response. Because I'm not saying whether you are like that or not, that's irrelevant. They perceive you as that. Some people really, really hate that. And some people really protective. So my point is, like, I know that people can do this to little girls, even teenage girls, especially if they seem small or fragile. And in the right conditions, that's a disastrous recipe for teaching extreme passivity and/or said little girl learning that feigned helplessness and innocence is a fantastic method to get your own way, or lots of attention, or both. And that type of thing can get quite manipulative if you're not careful. So the experience I described, I imagine that Ariana Grande probably had a similar experience of provoking similar reactions in various people, but on steroids, on mega steroids. Firstly, as I said, she's incredibly pretty. She's really small. She gives off fragile little girl energy well into adulthood. And she was famous as a kid. A rising star. And what would that be like? From the youngest age, you're conscious of being pleasing to others, aware of how you're coming across because you're aware that you are always observed. You start to learn that you really get rewarded for pleasing the adults around you. Your sense of self-worth and purpose gets tied up in being cutesy or engaging or pretty and getting attention. Who you are probably starts to become a performance. You never really get the space to develop a strong sense of identity because of everyone else's opinions on your life. Agents, network executives, writers, stage mothers, marketing teams. It's probably bad enough as an actress, but once you're a singer like Ariana Grande, you are your brand. There's no difference then between the character you're playing and you're Ariana. You're the brand. That's it. How the hell then, as a child or young adult, do you start to untangle who you really are from this carefully curated public image? You don't get the freedom to decide what to wear and make horrible fashion decisions that are authentic to you without feeling like the whole world is watching. And you probably get told to change, I would guess. Because that's the flip side to people acting protectively towards you, is people telling you what to do, pushing you into things, making all decisions for you, rescuing you, or solving every problem for you. You're told you're special. People treat you like you're special. You're so pretty. You're so talented. You're so precious and fragile, this delicate little flower. Of course, you would then approach absolutely everything as if you are this precious, delicate little flower. Would learn that you don't really have to do anything except be cute and agreeable in order to get people to do things for you. Would learn that you're not in control of your life and someone is always going to sweep in and save you and tell you you're special and precious and beautiful and you'll never have to do anything. You're so cute and pretty and childlike that people don't hold you accountable or expect much from you in that sense. Just be sweet.
Smile to get along, to make the directors pleased with you, the paparazzi pleased with you, casting agents pleased with you, your audience pleased with you. Just be agreeable and do what you're told and look pretty and let us sort out the details, darling. Let the grown-ups sort out the details, darling. Now put this dress on and smile for the camera. You're making us all so proud. Such a good girl. How on earth, in those circumstances, are you going to develop any sense of autonomy or self-reliance or self-responsibility? How are you going to be fit for an adult relationship requiring you to be an active participant? Why would anyone expect you to be at all in touch with reality? Of course you would live in a fantasy, dreaming of a happily ever after. After all, you're still a little girl on the inside, really. And with no sense of self and a career which is just as, if not more, reliant on your looks than your talent, you'd probably constantly be seeking that validation that you really are that sweet and cute and pretty and in need of saving. Because that's the thing about you that everyone's always cared about most. Your opinions? Nah. In fact, it's better if you're not an active force in your own life. Okay, it makes it easier. It makes it easier for us to manage it for you, darling. Okay? That could all be wrong. That could be nothing at all, like what her experience has been. I'm making huge assumptions. I'm presenting like a hypothetical, a possibility. This is a possibility, okay? I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised if all those things were true, is the point I'm making. Or if not for her, then for other people in similar circumstances. And when I said her career, by the way, is hugely reliant on her looks, I think more so than her talent, I'm not saying that she's not talented. I don't like her music, it's not for me. But she can sing. She can sing. However, don't tell me that she is not as much the product as her music. She is intentionally packaged and presented as sexy girl child. By that I mean Ariana's whole brand of tee little girl with the baby voice and the ponytails and bows in her hair and the kitten ears and an overly childish demeanour mixed with lingerie, thigh-high boots and very sexually explicit lyrics just screams to me of a girl sexualised far too young, shout out Nickelodeon, who was rewarded for it, had the adults around her push her into it, and is now stuck in some bizarre hell of stunted growth as a cutesy little girl, but, in a sexy way. And if that sounds disturbing, that's because it is. And no, I'm not saying that because she's petite and has a soft voice. Petite, sweet women can also be sexy. It's allowed. I spoke about that in my last video. That's not the problem. I'm saying that because her whole childish demeanour just really seems like a learned performance. And I think the people around her cultivating her brand knew exactly what they were doing. In my opinion. Who knows if any of what I said came close to the truth? Only she knows the ins and outs of her life, but that is how it looks. And I'm going to read out this quote again. So this is from the book Goddesses in Every Woman. This is about the sexuality of the Persephone archetype. And this book was written in the 80s. So a long time ago. A while ago. And it just screams to me of Ariana Grande's brand. And partly why she's so successful. And I don't think it's been unintentional. So, quote, Persephone was a child woman, unaware of her sexual attractiveness and her beauty. This archetypal combination of sexuality and innocence permeates the United States culture, where the woman who is considered desirable is a sex kitten, a woman with a girl-next-door look posing nude for Playboy magazine. In the film Pretty Baby, for example, Brooke Shields played the archetypal child woman, a virginal, desirable, 12-year-old girl in a brothel whose virginity was sold to the highest bidder. This image was continued in her next films, Blue Lagoon and Endless Love, and in her advertisements for Calvin Klein jeans. That's the sexy side to the Disney princess archetype, the helplessness that goes along with the sexuality, that is heavily rewarded and highly encouraged in the culture, in the entertainment industry. The sex kitten, passive, and am I sexy? I didn't know that. So I'm not at all surprised that having grown up with those sorts of expectations and imagery pushed onto you, I never saw the show, by the way, that Ariana Grande was in on Nickelodeon, but I've seen clips from it, and she
it's like she's never really moved away from that character that she played of the ditzy girl who was like also really sexualized because Nickelodeon, innocently doing sexual things without knowing that they're sexual because she was a child and it was the adults around her that were pushing her into it. But it's like that's not left behind. She's no different from that ditzy like character from what I've seen on the clips that she played then. And the sexuality element of it, I think, has always been huge. I think even back then, when she was a child, playing a ditzy character, I think that helplessness and hint of, oh, a little bit sexy, the sexuality there, I think that's always been part of it and always been pushed onto her. The entertainment industry is not a good place to grow up in. So I'm not at all surprised that having grown up with those sorts of expectations and imagery pushed onto you, that you're going to not be very successful at relationships and constantly be seeking validation. And perhaps most toxic of all, be insecure enough that you're constantly competing with other women to be the most beloved girl in the room. And this brings us to the homewrecker allegations. So, for those who aren't aware of the latest scandal, I will give you a brief outline. And this is where the video gets gossipy. It's important context though. So in 2021, Ariana Grande got married to a guy called Dalton Gomez. I think he worked in real estate or something. I don't think he was famous. But anyway, so she married him in 2021. And then in early 2023, after barely 2 years of marriage, it was rumoured that she was dating her co-star on the film adaptation of the musical Wicked, her co-star being a musical theatre nerd by the name of Ethan Slater. Ethan Slater, at the time, had been married for 5 years, 5 or 4, sorts of say different things, to his high school sweetheart. He and his wife had welcomed their first child into the world less than a year earlier. Yes, it's that bad. And I think they'd been married 4 or 5 years, but I think they've been together for like 14 years or something. Rumour has it, Ariana even met his wife on several occasions and held his baby. Newly born baby. Apparently the couples were even spotted going on double dates together, which... Imagine the level of betrayal and violation that you would feel if you realised the colleague your husband handed your newborn baby to, as she smiled at your face, was sleeping with him behind your back. Allegedly, Ariana also said to his wife that she really wanted a baby of her own and couldn't wait to start a family. While she was sleeping with this woman's husband, creepy, Ariana, wear her skin too, why don't you? It's giving single white female. But, you know, anyway, those are just rumours, so they might not be true. But yeah, everything was going wild at the time with everything saying all kinds of all that was going on. Though, you know, Ethan's now ex-wife, Lily J, does seem to blame Ariana for her marriage falling apart. Quote, Ariana's the story, really. Not a girl's girl. My family is just collateral damage. Yeah, that one's got a sting. And now both Ethan Slater and Ariana Grande have filed for divorce from their respective partners and are confirmed to be dating each other, though they both pinky promised there was no infidelity or partner crossover. I believe them. It's a total coincidence that 2 marriages just happened to implode at the same time soon after they met each other, and then they just happened to start dating immediately after. Yeah, I love it when God creates those, you know, little synchronicities that tells you that 2 people are just made for each other. Adorable. It's also worth saying, because some of her fans have been saying that everything has been debunked, all these rumours about her. No. I think it was in January, was it, that the hashtag apologise to Ariana was trending because this screenshot was circulating and everyone said it meant everything about Ariana had been made up and that Ethan's ex-wife had retracted her statement. You guys do know what retraction means, right? All I get from this is it seems like she unknowingly spoke to the press or gave a statement on the record without knowing what that meant. This doesn't mean that she didn't say it. It means that she didn't mean for it to be publicised like it was. Those are 2 very different things. Or at least that's what I'm understanding. Someone tell me if I'm being really dumb and misreading that. That's what I'm getting from it. The only news that I see here is headlines. Headlines, your headline at 8. Turns out journalists are scummy. Who knew? So not news. There's no news. There's no news here. Nothing. Okay, what else is new? So people say that there's like a lack of hard evidence that they cheated. I mean, sure. But like, also, come on. If we're going to look at the circumstantial evidence, I think we can all conclude that it's highly unlikely that all these coincidences happen at the same time. I mean, okay, I'm sorry, there's not a video of them shagging. It just seems like too convenient a pattern for Ariana to like, for it all to just be media smears because people just want to tear her down or whatever. So I believe that they said that's like from their camps or sources close to Ariana and Ethan are saying that, you know, Ethan was separated for 2 months before dating Ariana and that she was separated from her husband for months before they started dating. Right, so that's kind of what they're saying. Apparently that narrative, it doesn't work. It doesn't match up with his May Mother's Day post devoted to the mother of his child, a post that Ariana Grande liked, by the way. Classy, babe. You always keep it classy, don't you? And in the same month, in May 2023, Ariana posted a 2-year wedding anniversary post on her Instagram story with a photo of their wedding with saying the caption, "I love him so," with a picture of them kissing on their wedding day. What a weird thing to post if, at that point, according to sources close to Ariana, she and her husband had been separated since January. Some sources I heard say February. But either way, so separated January. That's February, March, April, May. About 4 months into her and her husband's alleged separation, she celebrates their wedding anniversary on Instagram saying that she loves him. And there are news articles from the time, by the way, about that post saying how sweet it was. And oh, they celebrate 2 years. Google it. Obviously, I completely stand with Ariana. Believe people are lying about her because that makes sense. Separated couples in the process of divorcing always write sweet anniversary posts to each other celebrating the marriage they've decided to end. Totally normal thing to do. And as I said, in the same month, Ethan Slater calls his wife, quote, the most loving, caring and wonderful mum/person in the world. Yet 2 months later, he files for divorce and starts dating Grande. Yet she had nothing to do with his marriage falling apart. Come on. You don't have to be a detective to work this one out, boys. We can do maths. I can't do maths, but I can do this maths I can do. I looked at this equation and I said, oh, I know what's going on here. We all know what's going on here. Also, by the way, to add more credibility to this narrative that she probably did sleep with another woman's husband, is that it might be, allegedly, according to some sources, a consistent pattern of behaviour with Little Miss break up with your girlfriend, I'm bored. Break up with your girlfriend. Yeah, 'cause I'm bored. Yes, that is the title of one of her songs, and yes, it does seem to reveal a lot more about her character than people initially realised. Apparently, with quite a lot of her partners, they were involved with somebody else before she started dating them. Again, classy. She's one classy lady. So this whole thing with Ethan Slater is really nothing new. So, and whatever, if I find, I'll link the bloody article. It's all like gossipy stuff. But with Mac Miller, Big Sean, Pete Davidson, Dalton Gomez, and now Ethan Slater, there's all rumours with the women who were dating those men at the time or before Ariana Grande, with coming out and implying, hinting that she might have had something to do with the breakup, and then immediately afterwards they were dating Ariana. 5 times. Allegedly, apparently. You know? And maybe not all of those 5 times was true and worked out like that, and maybe, you know, some of them don't have much to them, and these are rumours blown out of proportion. And if it was like once or twice, maybe I'd agree, but 5 times? 5 women, in one way or another, pointing fingers at her. And 5 rumours. Out of nowhere? It's just a coincidence? This is what the saying "there's no smoke without fire" was made for. And one of the most obvious, like, call-outs was, so this was in 2014, Ariana Grande started dating Big Sean. I don't know who he is. I don't care. I think he does music in America, like so many famous people these days. I think. I don't know. Yeah, so she was dating him. Maybe might have been some crossover. So while he was engaged to the late Naya Rivera. So in her autobiography, Naya wrote about going to his house, so they had an argument, and then going over to her fiance's house when he'd said he didn't want to see her, and, quote, I walk in, go downstairs, and guess what little girl is sitting cross-legged on the couch listening to music? It rhymes with Schmariana Schmande. Yes, so she wasn't exactly subtle, was she? I also do appreciate the little girl call out, because that is how she acts. And the faux innocent thing, you know what's annoying? It's not that she's innocent that's annoying. It's that I'm innocent when she's going around doing not doing the innocent things. That's what's so annoying about behaving like a little girl when it's like, you cow. You know, I think that's what gets to people. It just sounds like she just has an issue with taken men and being grabby with them, metaphorically speaking. Or maybe literally too. But, you know, and yes, I hear all the people on the internet who are saying that it's the men who left their partners and that Ariana's not responsible for anything because it wasn't her who was in a relationship with those women. Fair, you're half right. Ariana didn't steal those men because you can't steal someone else's partner without their willing participation. Yeah, absolutely true. She didn't make them do anything. I don't care if the most attractive person you've ever seen makes a pass at you. If you're in a relationship, you stay faithful to the person that you said you'd be faithful to, and any decisions to the contrary are entirely on you. You didn't get stolen, no one kidnapped you, you went willingly. So yes, I agree, Ethan Slater can be thrown into the bin, along with the other weaselly nice guys who cheat on their wives, like Ned Fulmer. I'm doing a separate video on them, by the way, because that's an interesting phenomenon. They'll get their turn, don't worry. But Ariana doesn't get a pass for this behaviour either. Just because she wasn't the one who made the vows. With that consistent pattern of behaviour? No. She's not absolved because, you know, oh, they'd have done it with someone else. They'd have done it with someone else anyway. I don't care. That is not, and never has been, a valid moral justification for anything ever. She's so in the wrong for this. Ethan Slater's wife put it perfectly. Not a girl's girl. Which is ironic, because now she's hiding behind feminism to deflect criticism for her bad behaviour. The sisterhood isn't coming to rescue you. You broke the rules. They don't care.
I mean, that's just like the rules of feminism.
Now, as I said, I'd actually offer more leniency to Grande if this wasn't such a pattern, and if she also didn't seem to have a habit of becoming intensely serious with someone before ditching them and moving on to someone else. A one-off could be a misunderstanding, a mistake, or maybe a bad, selfish decision because you had a genuine connection with someone. Still bad, not excusable, but more understandable. Maybe you really did fall in love. But this just seems like a kink at this point. It seems like you're doing it for the ego trip and the validation, honestly. So let's pull out my armchair to do a bit of the old armchair psychology and think, well, what do I think this is about? The going for married or involved men. Does anyone else remember when that Instagram model came out with text messages between her and Adam Levine, exposing their affair? The text messages where he told her his wife was pregnant and he wanted to name the baby after her. His mistress. Yes, that happened. Unhinged behaviour. Everyone in Hollywood needs an exorcism. What else is new?
I was having an affair with a man who's married to a Victoria's Secret model. I mean, quite frankly, I feel exploited. I wasn't in the scene like I am now, so I was definitely very easily manipulated. Maroon 5 is practically elevator music at this point, so I'm sure you know who Adam Levine is. But Adam and I were seeing each other for about a year. After I stopped talking to him over, a period of months, this is how he came back into my life. He said, okay, serious question. I'm having another baby, and if it's a boy, I really want to name it Sumner. You okay with that? Dead serious. I mean, my morals were unknowingly compromised. I was completely manipulated.
So does everyone remember how much instant hate she got? And no, it wasn't because she was a woman. It was because the video she made was calling him out for bad behaviour that she'd previously been perfectly happy to be complicit in, all while pretending she was innocent and trying to play the victim, when the only actual victims in the situation were his wife and kids, who she quite clearly did not care about. Watch the video. She is obnoxious in it. Zero remorse. It's an exercise in vanity and attention seeking. And the way she began this video was very telling, and everyone picked up on it.
I was having an affair with a man who's married to a Victoria's Secret model.
She didn't say, I had an affair with a married man. She didn't name his wife, even though we all know who Adam Levine is married to. And she exposed that it was Adam Levine she was talking about. She said she'd had an affair with a man who was, quote, married to a Victoria's Secret model. Now this was very important. It was very important to her that she told us all that his wife was a Victoria's Secret model. Because this wasn't a video owning up to anything. It was a video made to brag about her own desirability. And the actual message she wanted to broadcast was received by everyone loud and clear. I stole a man away from his supermodel wife. That's how hot I am. Yes, the subtext was that transparent. She also made many videos during the affair, by the way. This just proves to me that it was entirely about stroking her own ego by winning against a highly desirable woman, the Victoria's Secret model. I just like when you're so insecure that you have to tear down any woman that you perceive as competition or as more beautiful than you. I'm just going to play a Brett Cooper clip because she summed it all up pretty well actually here with all the relevant clips.
In the midst of the affair, she was posting videos like this. Like, this was not sly. That is an Adam Levine song called Beautiful Mistakes, and she's laying in her bed rolling around. This is when the affair was going on. Yeah, again, not sly. Poetic, really. Here's another one.
And every time he leaves.
You don't even have to watch more than one video to know what she does for a living, is all I'm saying. But the caption of that video is when he's on tour, and then says that she's lonely. You're not hiding the fact that you are dating a touring musician under the radar. Here's another one. When he says he only likes blondes, yeah, Adam Levine's wife, Beate, is a blonde. You taunting little sly bitch. Here's another one. I really like letting her have it. People screen recorded this.
That one girl. I think the not bitch.
Walk like an angel. Walk like an angel. Talk.
So this one, she captioned, brunettes be winning. The first part of it is, I bet you're with that blonde girl. It's an Olivia Rodrigo song. And then she goes, never mind, do not care, brunettes stay winning. And then she's twerking. And then there she is dressed up like a Victoria's Secret model. Again, she's being like Taylor Swift, leaving Easter eggs, hints all over the place. I saw a picture on her Instagram where she posted a picture in a bikini. Well, basically her entire Instagram is pictures of her in bikinis. And one of her friends texted and went, Victoria's Secret model who? And she goes, I know, right? Like, you disgusting human being. You are not hiding this whatsoever. This was always about attention for you.
Yes. During the affair, this girl was making countless videos, stroking her own ego and feeding her bloated vanity by not so subtly telling her followers that she was better than some unnamed blonde woman. Every video is clearly implying that she is more desirable. This is some of the bitchiest, cattiest, claws out, competitive mean girl shit that I've ever seen. She's literally dressed as a Victoria's Secret angel and sexy dancing. Tell me that is not a direct taunt at his Victoria's Secret angel wife.
Look at me. I'm just as sexy as her. I can be sexier than her. Why do you want her? Look at me.
And then her friends joining in and her liking the comment that says, Victoria's Secret model who? Like his wife is nothing compared to you. Pathetic behaviour. To do something like that, for her to have done something like that, it must have driven her nuts that his wife was a Victoria's Secret angel and she wasn't. And then she wanted everyone to believe that she was sincerely sorry and felt bad for his wife and only released the information to do the right thing. No. I bet she released the information because it was driving her crazy that the wider world didn't know that she'd won over this ultra famous, beautiful woman. Because what's the point in the ego boost if you can't tell anyone about it? You just had to prove to yourself and to everyone else that she wasn't all that because you could take her man. That you're all that. And that's what happens when you value yourself primarily on superficial beauty. There can only be one fairest of them all. Not everyone can be the prettiest girl in the room. So you have to keep proving your value again and again and again. What's so funny about this really is that there's a level to it, to me, that just makes me think that it almost has nothing to do with being attracted to Adam Levine and everything to do with this Instagram chick fueling her own feelings of desirability. Like, it's about his wife, you know, like by showing the world, you know, see, I'm better than her and she's a supermodel, but look at me, I'm sexier, I'm more attractive, men love me more, me, tell me I'm beautiful too, I could take a husband, I'm better than her. It seems to be getting off more on how attractive she is rather than getting off on Adam Levine, you know? It's very self-obsessed. It's like she's parasitically using or feeding on another woman's beauty to prove her own desirability to the world. That's what it is, really. It's parasitic. And it's sad, because she is a beautiful girl. Like, she doesn't need to prove that she's attractive or win over another beautiful woman to prove that she's attractive. But trying to use the destruction of another woman's happiness and family to publicly fuel your own vanity, it's genuinely vile. When I was a kid, there was this woman I knew of who was a bit infamous in the area for having affairs with married men. Like, she was attractive. She would have no problems finding someone single. But she didn't want that. She didn't want that. It was like a game for her. She thrived off going for other women's husbands. Every time it was like a hit of validation. I'm so attractive, I can have anyone I want. I'm so attractive, I can tempt him away from his wife and kids. And the more beautiful the man's partner, the more desirable you must have been to have enchanted him and stolen him away. She was using those men to validate herself. I don't think the attraction was ever really about them. Yeah, I think it's more about measuring yourself against other women and getting off on your own desirability than the men, in a way, isn't it? But, you know, this is the issue with beautiful women being overvalued for their beauty. They can often be more insecure than less attractive or less conventionally attractive women, because unlike those other women, they might feel like their whole lives the only thing anyone has ever valued in them are their looks. This is just magnified if they are in any way famous or work in the entertainment industry or have then made a career off of that. It's just exacerbated like 100-fold. So I think then they have to keep proving that yes, they really are that beautiful, because it's not actually about proving their beauty on an unconscious level. It's really about proving their worth as a human being, because that's what people value them on. And I'm not saying it's just attractive women who can behave insecurely like that to prove their desirability, by the way. Not at all. I'm just saying I think it happens more than people might think with them, and they're not half as secure in their looks as people might think. I reckon, a lot of the time. Like, they probably know that they're beautiful. It's not necessarily that type of insecurity, although a healthy dose of that to go along with it too. But also, they might have been taught that it's the most important thing about them if everyone around them has always been overvaluing it. And they might think that that's all they're worth. So God, they better keep proving it and, you know, getting that validation that they are worth something as a person. And God forbid they get a grey hair, because what even is the point of them in that case? It's sad. But it's not an excuse for bad behaviour. Most bad behaviour comes from a wound, but that still doesn't mean that it's acceptable. I was also thinking as well about why there's this element of going for, like, taken men. And I think it might be because beauty is a temporary thing. Like, it's such a temporary thing. It's not going to last forever. Everyone knows it's not going to last forever. There's a time limit on it, in a way that there isn't on other things that might give you self-worth. There's always going to be someone more beautiful than you sooner or later. And I wonder if that's why there's a kick out of stealing another woman's partner, maybe? I don't know. Like, you're proving, you know, not yet. Like, oh, I've still got it over these other bitches for now. Because beauty is measured comparatively in relation to others. You know, that's why there's phrases like, she's a Midwest 10, but an LA 5. Because it's relative based on who is around you. Thus, it's inherently competitive. And also, I don't even like talking about beauty in that way, because I don't think it is true beauty. I don't think, I mean, I've probably talked about that more in my last video. This is like the shallow vanity aspect that I'm talking about. That's not really what I was on about. And there were some people who kind of got the message from my last video as well, that I was saying that beauty is like the most important thing about a woman, or like her worth, or that, that's an equal trade for a man's resources or money. I wasn't arguing that. I was saying that, I just wanted to clear this up because a few people thought that. I wondered if people might think that. I wasn't saying that. I was saying that the men who sneer at women for being shallow or frivolous, or like, oh, you care so much about how you look, like those guys online, are also the ones who place the highest value on women's beauty. They're the ones who value it. And that's why women are then valuing it. And they're the ones who decide this is worth how much money. Like, I don't like that. I'm not saying, you know, and I don't think physical beauty is the most important thing about women. I really don't. Just to be clear. You'll have to watch that video because I go into it. I think it's really complex and nuanced. And yes, physical beauty is important, but it's also not. And it is, but it's not. And then it is on a level, but then it's deeper than that. And then is it really about physical beauty? Like, there's a lot of the deeper kind of like beauty that is not just I look like an Instagram filter. You know what I mean? And I think that's the kind of beauty that is really unique based on like, obviously it's good for people to take care of themselves and look good and look healthy. But to a certain extent, like people, I like people's faces all have individual quirks and they're like, you know what I mean? It's like, beauty doesn't have to be inherently competitive. Like, I feel like, you know, if you think about all the beautiful sights you've seen in nature, like all the beautiful sunsets and trees and flowers and landscapes, you could look at them and see them all as immensely different, but there doesn't necessarily have to be such a hierarchy of, oh my god, this has got to go down because this one's more beautiful than this one. You know what I mean? So I think, okay, I won't go off on that again, but I think when it's that shallow kind of very surface level vanity and Kardashian type, you know, beauty, that kind of thing is inherently competitive. But I digress. I just wanted to say that, you know. But anyway, I just I wonder if that. But that's where that insecurity is coming from. So then if that's when you're measuring it constantly against other women, I don't know. So what I just said there about like having to measure yourself, and because beauty's fleeting and it is inherently competitive. Is that the reason that Ariana Grande allegedly seems to keep falling for men already involved with someone else? I don't know. But I expect, having grown up a child star in the public eye, over-sexualised prematurely on Nickelodeon, which, it was obscene and predatory what she was subjected to as an underage child, and nothing she's done takes away from that. I expect your career being largely based on your sexuality or your looks from the youngest age would probably cause most people to place an unhealthy amount of value on their desirability. And your career and everything being based on getting attention from people and being adorable and being... I think it's kind of inevitable that you might end up seeking constant attention and being adorable from different people. Also, the constant public criticism and people analysing your looks would have added a nice dose of insecurity over the sexualisation and the beauty, making most people not only place their value on their sexual appeal, but also constantly question said sexual appeal and be desperate for validation, as it feeds directly into their self-worth. That would be my guess. And again, hypotheticals, I don't know. I'm just, you know, that could have happened is what I'm saying. Like, Ariana Grande, she's been treated as a cutesy sex kitten for as long as I can remember, at least. That's always how I remember her being, like her brand. This thing where she seems to apparently need to be adored by as many people as possible is hardly surprising. It's what people have always valued her on. Her career is built on that. And again, I'm not saying she's not talented, but her career is built on that. I mean, Ethan Slater's ex-wife said that she and her family were collateral damage, but I'd actually go further than that and say not only were they collateral, I think, but essential. I think that they're unwilling participants in this exercise in validation. I'm not convinced Ariana Grande would have been interested in Ethan Slater in the first place if he hadn't been married with a kid. Not only then have you managed to lure a man away from his wife of however many years, you know, half a decade, but together a lot way longer, but you've also managed to override his paternal instincts and lure him away from his newborn child. God, you know, I mean, you gotta be something really special to do that. Honestly, I think that it was the challenge of a nerdy guy apparently totally dedicated to his childhood sweetheart and with a new baby at home. Something fresh and different. I think that's what drew her to him. But I could be totally wrong. I could be totally wrong. Maybe I'm judging her too harshly, but I'm going off past behaviour. If being simultaneously adored and sexualised is primarily what you are valued for, while also facing heavy criticism, which I think is something that a lot of child stars experience, then you will seek out other people in relationships for that constant reassurance. If your life and career has been largely guided for you by your parents or agents or whoever the hell, if you're used to being passive and infantilised, then why wouldn't you keep seeking that knight in shining armour to fix things for you? The last one didn't work. Well, that didn't make me happy. So how about this one? Or this one? Or this one? If you're an adored object, the prettiest princess, then I don't think behaviour like that is that surprising. After all, if you're the princess of the story, then you can't do anything wrong. And why shouldn't you get your happily ever after with the prince of your dreams, no matter whose expense it's at? Also, if you're passive, if you see yourself as waiting to be saved or waiting to be swept off your feet, whisked away, as not really being an active force in your own life, then you're probably not going to take responsibility for your actions because you probably don't feel responsible for your actions. You were helpless to the whims of life, to the whims of love. It's not your fault. That's what her songs basically say. She presents very much as a damsel at the mercy of fate, of love, of the media, of people around her, of the world. So don't be mean to her for what she did, because it's not her fault. She's passive. Okay? This is immature femininity, if it wasn't clear. Because Disney Princess Syndrome means you are still a little girl. And the thing with little girls is that they are children. And the thing with children is that they see themselves as the centre of the universe. And they also live in Fantasyland. Maturing is when you start to take responsibility for yourself and then others around you. And you're able to not only be autonomous for yourself, but take care of others. This is also, by the way, the type of behaviour some men in the manosphere are unintentionally asking for when you talk about wanting 18-year-old girls who are naive and compliant and can be trained to be the perfect mothers of your children. You will not get a good wife and mother. You will get a child unable to take responsibility for herself. Least of all for your bloody children. So really think about what it means to have a dependent when you're promoting the idea that women should be completely dependent on you. And I'm talking about more than financially. In her ideas, in her choices, in her obedience. It's not going to go how you think it's going to go. And also, you will probably just end up being an intense disappointment to her when she realises that you're not the Prince Charming from her dreams of happily ever after. And that's when unconscious sleeping beauty might start to psychologically wake up and mature. But more on that later. In my Persephone archetypes video. That's when we get deep. This is celebrity gossip. This is what you came here for. You came here for corset tops and trashy costumes in the background, you know? And celebs. Subscribe though, if you want to hear more about that. Hi. Are you tortured by never knowing what happened to the unreleased scripts from my unfinished video series, like parts 2 and 3 from my review of Netflix's Winx? Are you kept awake at night, pondering what mysteries the 30 minutes I cut from my Rolo video could hold? 30 key minutes where I addressed his unhinged rant that it's impossible for women to have heroes' journeys or be good protagonists. Did you enjoy channel videos like I become a narcissist, I declare war on mosquitoes, and of course, the classic, I talk and 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 talk? If the answer to any of those questions is yes, then joining my online cult could be the right choice for you. That's right. Over at The Authentic Observer on Patreon, you'll get access to unreleased scripts from videos I never uploaded, the cut sections from longer videos, if there are any, and hours of unedited rambles. I talk about everything, like how important mood is in storytelling and the difference, if any, between masculine and feminine points of view in writing. Or a video discussing the poetry of some of my patrons. Or that time Fresh and Fit had a proud grapist on their podcast. Remember Scientology? Old news. The Authentic Observer is the hip new cult on the block. All the cool kids are signing up. You do want to be cool, don't you? There are so many options to choose from. Our entry-level tier, Skirts and Stockings, is a great choice for beginners. Overgrown Harry Potter kids may feel more at home as a devoted follower of Aces. And for the alpha males amongst you, the woodshed could be just what you need. Just don't let Rolo see you. No one knows what he does to the men he catches. The Authentic Observer cult operates on an honesty system. All tiers have the same access to content, the idea being to support the channel and the content produced here at whatever level you feel appropriate.
At the moment, I don't take sponsorships, so if you value the content on this channel and would like to support me, that's where to do it. Link down below in the description box. So if, like myself, you enjoy listening to the sound of my voice, hop on over to Patreon for an offer you don't want to miss. Join a cult today!
When I started making music when I was young, I didn't really expect that or sign up for that. Like, I just loved music. I didn't know it had to be a game. I didn't know people were going to try to pit me against people I love. I didn't know that, you know, it was going to do such strange things. And I think I was very young and processing all of that.
Yes, and say that shit with your chest. Alright, Ariana darling, I will say that shit with my chest. By the way, I'm not doing this to show off my legs. Genuinely, I promise, swear down. It's just because I feel like I'm quite happy with the outfit. In terms of even down to the shoes. See, I'm upset that you can't really see the shoes. I'm gonna zoom it in a second. I just feel like I've got the spirit of her yes and outfit style. And I'm upset that you don't get to see it, because I put all this effort in and I was like, oh, but it's only going to be Head and Shoulders, really. So enjoy. I couldn't find like an industrial type background, really. This is the best I've got to come close to her new look. I actually wanted to do a whole video on the power of style and marketing, because this fallout with the scandal of Ariana has been a masterclass in branding. It's so transparent that it shouldn't work, yet it does, because it's subtly and skillfully done. I hope she's paying whoever is doing her branding and PR like a fuck ton of money, because they absolutely deserve it. This was one of the main reasons that I wanted to do a video talking about Disney Princess Syndrome, because while yes, Grande's branding has always been cutesy and princessy, in the past it was more bimbo, ditzy and sweet, showing like helplessness in a coy sort of way. But now Grande, or her team, whoever is responsible for this change, has so effectively harnessed, or weaponized, depending on how you look at it, the fragile save me power of the damsel in distress. And it actually seems to be working. I can see the meetings now. Like, chokers are too sexually suggestive. Get rid of them. Let's get Ariana in a demure and fragile look. No more overt sexuality. This Ariana is a target of the media who has unwillingly had her personal life dragged out and talked about, with lyrics in her new album like, quote, "Why do you care so much whose dick I ride?" Classy. Let's trick everybody into believing her sex life is something she's always kept quiet about. And it's really vulgar, not of her and her behaviour, but vulgar of everybody who's criticising her behaviour. They're the vulgar ones, not our reserved, shy Ariana, who's always kept that sort of thing out of the spotlight. Perverts, really, aren't you? Yeah. Creepy little weirdos talking about her and her boyfriend allegedly breaking up 2 marriages. Why would you comment on that? Creepy. Weird. Kinky, almost, isn't it? I mean, it wasn't creepy when you were watching her simulate sexual positions in her music video and singing about how she likes to be fucked while dressed like a sexy toddler. But now that you're talking about the broken family left in her destructive wake, This is the part now when you're too involved in her sex life, and it's creepy. It didn't seem to be too much of a problem before with the hit singles, but okay. No one cares whose dick you ride, Ariana. What people care about is that you allegedly had a very public affair with a married man while his wife was coming to terms with the first few months of motherhood. But if you can paint all your critics as creeps obsessed with who you're fucking, that does make your defence more effective. Bravo, I'm genuinely impressed. See, there's been a bit of a change in Ariana, in her look, in her songs, in her
personality even. I mean, instead of lyrics like in the past of her shit talking about how she can get any man, your man in fact, watch out, she'll have your man. Now there's lines in her songs about how normally she's so unproblematic and she doesn't normally behave like this. Like in the song The Boy Is Mine. This is in this song. Subtle, isn't she? But in this case, she just can't help how she feels. She can't help it. Yes, that was a real line in her song about her being unproblematic. Normally I'm unproblematic, yeah. Okay, in the alternative reality where this is out of character for her. She's always been a nice girl, you guys. Don't you remember? It was just love that happened, that's all. And who is she to resist what's meant to be? She did nothing wrong. She's innocent. She's helpless to the whims of love. Blame love if you're going to blame anyone. That's a big part of the vibe of her new album, all about star-crossed destiny. She's all about that. Love. Don't know what happened. Like, it's very, it wasn't me, it was the wind type vibe. The whims of everything, of the universe. That's a big part of the vibe of her new album, which goes along very nicely, branding-wise, with her new look. And I think the new look that she's got has been very carefully considered. And I'm impressed, genuinely, I actually am. I'm genuinely impressed with how artful this rebrand has been at influencing people's perception of her. Like, that's why I want to talk about it. I find it, I'm admiring, frankly. Like, yes, don't get me wrong, she's still being criticised on a huge scale for the scandal. For loads of comments, anything about Ariana Grande, there'll be people commenting about it and everything. But the album's doing well. Her career's seems to be doing better than ever. There's the criticism, sure, but a lot of people are receiving this new album as a vulnerable, honest, raw, messy, but real, real insight into her soul and flaws, or some shit.
Even though the album goes through all of these different experiences of losing someone that you care about, it actually still was a love album to me. Because,
this feels very much like that.
Yeah, it does to me. It doesn't just have to be an everlasting love story. Love is complicated.
Showcasing both sides of it is kind of what I tried my very best to balance in the music is, this feeling can be true and this feeling can also be true simultaneously. And I think that's something that we can ignore sometimes.
Oh, it's so honest, it's so flawed, it's so messy and real, like, her new album, like, it's so, like, poetic and thoughtful and really, like, dives into, like, the messy, crazy world of, adult relationships and, like, I'd say it's romanticizing and making excuses for infidelity, but no, it's real, guys. It's real and raw and really, like, self-reflective. It's not. It's anything but self-reflective. But she's quite effectively managed to kind of market it and had it received as this self-reflective, really profound, vulnerable, raw collection of songs. And I really don't, my personal opinion, having listened to it, is that it's anything but. It's a lot of excuses. It's not at all self-reflective. It's very much, I don't know how this happened, blaming everything but herself. To me, the whole thing kind of read like an exercise in deflection, but done with some skill and some art. So shall we talk about that then? And maybe I'm cynical. Maybe I'm just a horrible person. That's a possibility. Maybe I'm horrible and cynical. However, I think the fact now that she's also at the same time opening up a lot more about her insecurities and her flaws and surgeries she's had done and body issues. To be clear, I'm not denying the truth of any of those things she said. I 100% believe that she's had all those things. Body image issues, insecurities, like all of these things. I 100% believe it. I'm not denying that. But I do find the timing just quite convenient. It seems a common celebrity thing when there's a scandal or YouTuber thing. And then you open up about your vulnerabilities to, like, show your human side, So people can't villainize you when you're real and you're raw and you've got flaws and you've got insecurities too. Bit of a touch of the underdog to endear you to the mob. Everything about her rebrand screams fragility and vulnerability. And we'll get into it because it's a little bit more complicated than that. Like, yeah, there's layers, but it's not solely that. That's a big part of it, but there's also a little, like, hints of strength coming through as well, which is really selling it, I think. I'm so cynical about this. I'm sorry. I'm impressed with the team. Like, I think they've done a really good job. I think, so I'm just acknowledging, this sounds sarcastic, but I actually am acknowledging, like, the skill required to go into this rebrand. I don't think it's genuine. I really don't. I mean, what is in celeb world, but I think in a lot of ways it's very much a direct response to this whole scandal.
It's what we wish for everyone. We want everyone to experience eternal sunshine, sure, but it's also like kind of the irony of it was my kind of what drew me to it, because there's a lot of pain on the album as well. So yeah,
there's everything.
So I came across this interview of hers where she's being interviewed about her new album, and also sort of, but not really addressing the scandal, but actually just dancing around it and not accepting any accountability. This interview is a really clear example of the kind of fragile, self-reflective, vulnerable rebirth rebrand. There's actually, I don't think, really any of those things. Certainly not reflective, but it gives a shallow, like, impression of being reflective.
There is a sense of this album where you're talking to people who have come to their own conclusion.
What?
People have crafted their own narratives.
Yeah. The thing is that, like, we know this about the tabloids and about the media and about, am I crazy? Don't we know this?
Yeah, but nobody cares for the sake of a good story or for curing one's boredom on the internet.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. It's like we selectively remember that this is what the tabloids do to people, especially women, based on whether or not we like the person. We selectively remember that. We selectively leave space for humanness, for nuance. Like, they don't leave space for that. Well, they do for their friends and their family. It's selective.
Yeah,
but when they turn it off, when that aligns with the version of a person that they have in their head that they want to believe is true.
So this is something which genuinely really does quite annoy me. So she addresses the tabloids and the people crafting their own narrative. What really annoys me is that she plays the feminism card, the woman card of, this is happening, we do this so much, we criticize women so much. Like, you're not being criticized because you're a woman, you're being criticized because of the scandal. I just find that that irks me, that she plays the woman card and the feminism card without addressing any of the criticism, the genuine criticism, the valid criticism, and how ironically that she's hiding behind feminism, but ironically, allegedly, if she did what the rumours say, then what she did was very anti-woman and allegedly created a single mother. But feminism, guys. Feminism for her.
Is there anything you wish people knew?
About what?
Any of it? All of it? You? It's a two-handed grip, eh?
Plenty. We don't have enough time, but if you guys want to come to La Masseria one night, please let me know. We can get into all of it. No, I feel like we don't need to go into any specifics, but of course there's like an insatiable frustration, inexplicable, hellish feeling with watching people misunderstand the people you love and you and anything. That yeah, of course.
It's just cowardly. This is the thing. This is what annoys me. I didn't come out with kind of this raw, vulnerable, self-reflective album. And she's, saying, I feel like we don't need to go into any specifics. Well, yeah, because if we went into specifics, then you'd have to face the criticism head on and actually address it, rather than the coward's way out, where you get to play the victim and pretend that you're rising above it when you're just ignoring it. There's a difference between rising above it and, la 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 la, I did nothing wrong. What's interesting about this is she's clearly very uncomfortable talking about this topic in the interview. She get her body language. I'm not a body language expert, but she's clearly uncomfortable. Well, and I don't blame her. Like, it's an uncomfortable thing to talk about. But you wrote an album about it. You came back with an album that is very obvious. It's not subtle. Like, The Boy Is Mine. Songs about, failing relationships. Like, your marriage has just fallen apart. Like, and this is the thing. I could be wrong, but this is, to me, that kind of adds credibility to the way that she's been portrayed in the media is that she's not addressed any of it. She's ignoring it. Like, if people were slandering me as a homewrecker and the narrative and what actually happened was different to what was being spun, you bet that I'm going to tell my side of the story. If it's false, if it's not true. And she says that it's hellish to watch people misunderstand the people you love and you. If it's actually hellish to watch people misunderstand the people you love and you, we all know, I mean, I'm guessing, but we all know who she's referencing here. It's Ethan Slater, been accused of, walking out on his wife and kid. But then defend him. Okay, defend him. Yeah, I can imagine that's really hellish. But if that's not true, if, God, Ariana's got some information that he's not as terrible as, how he looks, share it, defend him. Did he leave his newborn baby for you? If that accusation is so hellish, then dispel it.
I'm so nervous. Well, because pieces of it touch on things that are real, and then pieces of it are also just like...
a part of a concept.
Yeah, part of the concept. So what is that separation? And it's so scary to leave it up to these selective memory people to decipher. It's scary, but I digress. It's
just also very patronising to accuse all her critics of, like, having selective memory and been taken in by the tabloids. But again, this is the thing. It just annoys me when people do this. Well, they'll go, oh, the lies have been told about me. Lies. People are just taken in by tabloids and believe anything. But they'll never specifically address anything because they know, like, they can't because it's true. Then go, oh, that's not true about me. If there's, like, this huge scandal, and I can understand not addressing every little thing, but, with something like this, if we've been taken in by the tabloids, that's because you're quiet as anything. You've not come out and said, hang on, this is a lie. I think what's going on is that most of the facts, this is my opinion, I believe that most of the facts that have been reported on are by and large true. As everything happened as kind of the rumour mill said it happened. But I think the problem Ariana's having is that the difference is that people, and I can understand this because everyone's kind of like this, people just don't understand, they can't see her motivations, they don't know how she felt, they don't know how all the intricacies of that exact situation, of how they felt in that moment, and so they're taken in by, so like, yeah, okay, technically that did all happen, but like how I felt and how we... Okay, yeah, I feel like it's kind of disconnect going on with that, with wanting to be judged on, like, the feelings of how this all felt rather than, how it looks on the outside. But I think that's just cold, hard reality, isn't it? When people do something bad, everyone feels like they've got all sorts of reasons for doing it, or like, oh, it's not really like that, or if you knew how I felt, then... So it feels unfair to kind of hear people pointing out your bad behaviours, because you're like, no, but it wasn't like that. Well, not in your head, it wasn't. But that is the cold hard facts laid out, and maybe it should serve as a reality check of, oh God, that is bad. When I untangle it from my own like wants and needs and emotions and just look at like the facts of how it happened. Yeah, that was a pretty bad thing to do if it happened as they say it did.
My fears of replicating a certain cycle was actually the opposite. I was like, oh, wow. I want to be so much more like her than I am. I want to have the strength to say bye kindly when something isn't fucking right.
I also, the whole interview annoyed me on so many levels, but particularly because she talks in the interview about taking accountability. This is what I don't like. Don't say you're going to take accountability if you're not. Nothing is taking accountability. It was destiny, guys. It was all destiny, and it was love, and she hasn't been problematic before, but the boy is hers, and it couldn't help it, and it was just love, and it was destiny, and it was fate, and it was all been swept away, and nothing was her fault. The lyrics to The Boy Is Mine, it's making excuses. Ariana, explaining your feelings is not the same as taking accountability. Yeah, and I don't believe that she's not normally like this. It seems perfectly in character. And the thing is as well, because I want to address this, because I'm talking about her rebrand and how she's going for like a vulnerable, completely different rebrand. So from going from kind of sexually aggressive songs to now more like self-reflective songs. So yes and no, but so on the surface, songs like The Boy Is Mine from the title, it might seem aggressive, but it's in theme with her whole rebrand. So in The Boy Is Mine, it's making excuses and about how it's not her fault because he's hers. The boy is hers and she couldn't help it. And that's just how things are. And I didn't make the rules. It's just so unfortunate for everyone involved. That's the vibe of that. Still shameless, but it's still a very different tone to let's take a song like Break Up With Your Girlfriend, which is like basically kind of a similar message, really. But the difference there is that it's a very different tone. So in Break Up With Your Girlfriend, it's like, I'm better than her, break up with her, I'm the best, blah, blah. That's her old brand. Now, it's like, I don't think the core of the message is that different with The Boy Is Mine, but it's just like got a reflective, vulnerable spin on it to make it more palatable, and so you can get away with it, because it would be shameless if you came out with a song that was like aggressive, like, yeah, I'm better, he's mine. You instead have got to go, oh, it was love. Am I making sense? It's still shameless. It's still shameless, but it just makes it easier to get away with.
And whoa. Sorry.
Oh.
Almost there. Okay. I think a lot of, I think growing up kind of, you want what you don't have. Like my parents got divorced for all the right reasons. They weren't supposed to be together. And you kind of crave when you grow up the happily ever after. The one is the one is the one. So you ignore all these issues and you kind of, you cling on to that fairy tale.
Just this point is interesting, to go into what I was saying earlier, and I found this interesting when I was listening to this interview, because I listened to this after I'd scripted a lot of the video, and I'd find it interesting that she kind of echoed a lot of the stuff that I'd inferred anyway from her pattern of behaviour of the whirlwind relationship, whirlwind engagement, whirlwind marriage. She's self-aware enough to talk about why she craves that happily ever after, because her parents didn't have it, and I sympathise with that. You know, so she's self-aware enough on that level, but I suppose self-aware enough when it comes to her vulnerabilities, but not maybe quite at the stage where she can be self-aware when it comes to her flaws. It's a different thing, isn't it? Being honest about how you've wronged people rather than just your wounds, or how others have wronged or affected you.
I think Yes and is the one that lives on its own, and I also think it just kind of sets the tone by saying everyone has shit going on that you don't know about, and we know that too, you know?
Totally.
So just shh. Does that make sense?
100%. And
Like,
the proper tone for this album.
Yeah, it's really funny because like that is the message of the song, and then people share things on Instagram, like inspirational quotes that are like, you never know, don't judge a book by the cover. And you know, it's just such a funny duality with the internet, how people can be so toxic positive, and then the next tweet is the meanest thing I've ever read in my entire life, or the next whatever it is. It's funny, it's a funny time. So I think Yes and is the right thing to just say, hey, we're all experiencing the same kind of journey in a different way, on a different level, on a different this. And I liked it because it's also just expressing a whole bunch of feelings that I've had for the past forever of my career. There's always been a conversation about my body, my face, my hair, my voice, my everything. And it's like, if you change it and correct it, then it's wrong again for different reasons. It's like, all right, I'm done. It's done. I'm just gonna be.
That's all you can do.
I'm just gonna be, because I fucking love being. I love it.
Just be.
And I want everyone to feel that way as well.
Oh, resonates with literally everybody.
Bless and release, and yeah, shimmy.
I hate this. I've always hated this. Again, I've expressed this sentiment so many times in so many different ways, at so many different points in my channel. I've said, like, I'm basically, if people ask me what I would do on YouTube, I don't really know, because I talk about lots of different stuff. If I had to kind of sum it up, I would say basically I'm a critic. I think that's probably the most accurate. I don't know, tell me if you disagree, but I'd say I'm a critic, or a commentator perhaps, maybe, but I'd say probably a critic. So like, I really value criticism. I value I think criticism in a lot of ways serves the same purpose in some ways as comedy, and I think comedy also, they're quite interlinked, comedy and criticism. Was it Ricky Gervais who said that? Kind of the comedy, or I see it as critique, as like the immune system sometimes of, I don't know, ideas, culture, society, whatever. And I hate this when people just go, oh my god, it's negative. Criticism, shh, don't criticize. Everyone has stuff going on you don't know about, so shh, don't criticize. Don't criticize.
So just shh.
Hey, we're all experiencing the same kind of journey in a different way, on a different level, in a different this. That is hogwash. it's complete poppycock. It's annoyed me so much. I've gone old-fashioned. It's the only way to properly describe just how ridiculous pile of rubbish that sentiment is. Oh, cool, okay. You know that's bollocks. That's basically just giving everyone a free pass to do whatever they want because, hey, we're all experiencing the same kind of journey. You can't ever call anyone out on bad behaviour because, you know, just the same journey in a different way. So, like, don't call me out for being unfaithful or, you know, sleeping with married men, allegedly, who have newborn babies, allegedly, and being nice to his wife's face and then sleeping with him behind her back, allegedly, after holding her newborn baby, allegedly. Don't call me out for all that kind of really deeply fucked up, insane behaviour, because, like, we're all flawed, you know, we're all experiencing the same kind of journey, in a different way, on a different level, in a different this. Okay, cool, yeah? So I better not have heard, there better not be any clips anywhere, and I better never hear, ever, Ariana criticise anyone ever. And I literally mean everyone. Ted Bundy, he was just on his journey, you guys. Like, who are you to really judge, like, where he's coming from? Because, you know, we're all, like, experiencing the same journey, just on, like, a different way. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what's going on, you know? So, shh. You don't know, you know. Shut up. Don't call me out for being a bitch. Shut the fuck up. And before I get brainlets in my comment section saying that, oh my god, I can't believe you compared Ariana to Ted Bundy. No, I didn't. I compared the logic of it. I'm not saying she's like Ted Bundy. My argument is, I'm saying that is her logic if you apply it to a different situation. That's basically the logic. That's what I'm saying. It's flawed logic. It doesn't work. And it makes her point illogical. I'm demonstrating that her point is illogical. I'm not demonstrating that she's Ted Bundy. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Some of you, though, do need brain transplants in the nicest possible way. Do something shitty, you'll get criticised. What did you think was going to happen when you, a public person, ran off with a married man whose wife you allegedly met and baby you allegedly held? How did you think people were going to react to that? They were going to go, she's on her journey, babe. Don't you fucking dare judge her. She's only a 30-year-old. She's only a 30-year-old teenage girl. Yes, she's a grown-up and she's in her 30s and she's old enough to know better, but she's just a girl. She's a girl. She's on her journey. She's a girl. All about his wife. I mean, she's also on her journey and she seems pretty pissed off from some of the quotes I've seen about the turn her journey has taken, and has publicly spoken about it. And you've not denied any of what she said, Ariana. You've just hand-waved it away with, like, no, guys, don't be mean. I'm on a journey. That's not a defense against criticism. And then, so her song Yes And, which again, and I'm going to come to this later, it's not like her old brash self of the shit talking thing. It is a little bit, but it's not, because more vulnerable than that. It's like, but again with the whole rebrand, and what I did like, I found funny, people were calling that the homewrecker anthem, because it was just like, I mean, it was shameless. Yes and, like she referencing people who criticised her and it's yes and, but it's very superficial in the song, because she talks about things like people criticizing her appearance.
You know, I think I liked it better when her ponytail was a few centimeters higher. Right. And I mean, who cares if she's happy? I don't want happy. I want art.
Oh my god, did she really do that?
Well, I read it on the internet, so it must be true.
Well, it must be.
Petty gossip is not why people are mad at you right now, Ariana. That's not the media firestorm that you've been under lately. This is what I mean. It's the cowardice. It's the unwillingness to address what she knows. If she ignored it completely, that's one thing. But she's addressing it in the most cowardly, backhanded way. It's like when you're subtweeting someone. Like, you know, you're tweeting that's so clearly meant to be at someone. You don't have the balls to, like, tweet them directly or call them out directly. And then when they call you out and going, hey, is this about me? You go, no! Why are you dragging me? Why are you being mean to me and bullying me publicly? Why are you dragging me into drama? That's kind of what she's doing. We're writing loads of songs about it, but, like, in an indirect way. And then people go, okay, so this is about this family you ruined, right? And then she's like, no? What? I didn't say that. Honey. But it is, the way she talks, and again, this is why I really want to get into in a separate video, several videos actually, because I think there's so much important and interesting stuff to go into in this Persephone archetype of kind of immature girlhood. It's this phase a lot of girls go through when they're teenagers. But again, Ariana, she's not a teenage girl, she's a woman, so grow up. But it's a very, like, Persephone archetypal trait to talk like act like you're at the whims of outside forces. And thus, you know, and that's the vibe of her album, I felt, was like that. The whims of all these outside forces, love, destiny, the stars, the media. whoever's been mean to her this week. You know, all of those things, and thus she cannot be held accountable for her actions. It's very, very childish. It really is quite remarkable to me. I want you to, like, she's in her 30s. She's in her 30s. And it's not, yeah, she looks great. It's not that she looks young, which she does. That's not the point. I'm not saying, like, she seems so vulnerable and childlike. Not how she looks, but, like, how she acts. It's like, okay, grow up a bit now. It annoys me because I just kind of want to be like, okay, if you're going to play grown-up games, you get grown-up criticism and have put big girl grown-up pants on and be grown up. This is the vulnerability rebrand I'm talking about. This is a woman in her 30s and she seems so vulnerable and childlike. It feels almost repellent to us to treat her like an adult and hold her accountable. Like, it's like, oh, I can't do that. Like, you're cruel if you do. Stop bullying Ariana. Stop it. Like, God, she's so fragile but so strong. She's been through so much.
Whoa. Sorry.
Oh.
Almost there. Okay.
People are buying into her narrative of victimization, even though literally everything that has victimized her has been a direct result of her own actions. But again, that's the problem with Persephone archetype. She sees herself as a victim at the whims of the world, she sees herself as disempowered, and thus cannot take ownership over herself or her life. Because that's a step of maturing. Once you do that, you're no longer a little girl. But she's still kind of acting like a little girl. I just want to read this and let me know if this sounds familiar. So this is a quote again from the book about Persephone archetypes. So it talks about how Persephone archetypal women, because they have quite a childlike vulnerability about them. From little girls, they often can be treated like they're fragile and precious, and then they can end up taking such treatment for granted. It goes on to say, quote, "The Persephone evokes maternal responses in peers and older women who do favours for her and look out for her." So especially with this new rebrand, she really is evoking that response in many people. And I find it really, really interesting. It's self-infantilization again, which also invites others to infantilize you when you do that. It invites others to rescue you. It feels almost wrong to criticize her because she seems so delicate and helpless. We need to help her, save her, not harm her. You're cruel, media. How dare you treat her this way? It's really effective. It's really effective. She doesn't need to address the criticism because everything about her rebrand is telling us that we need to rescue her from the criticism. And a lot of this is not just helped, but only made possible by her outfits. This vibe she's giving off. And we'll get into that next. When Elizabeth I was pushed by powerful men around her to choose a husband, squash unsavoury rumours, and give the crown an heir, the only duty of a queen, really, she harnessed the language of fashion and marketing to seize power and change her own and England's future. To forever dispel dangerous whispers of scandal around an unmarried queen, she declared herself the Virgin Queen, proclaiming she was so devoted to her country that she was married to England. Now there's no way that anyone could force her hand into taking a husband. She's the beloved, heavenly, pure, divinely ordained by God, Virgin Queen. And she did. She created that iconic look, and a lot of it with portraits at the time filled with huge, heavy symbolism. I won't go into all of it now, but there's a few of symbols showing how wise she was, how all-knowing, all these things of associating her with the divine, with religion, with the Virgin Mary kind of connotations, with the divine ruler, very, very... All of this cemented her power and legitimacy. Was there any difference between Elizabeth, the unmarried queen, weak-minded and incapable of ruling alone because she was only a woman, and a childless woman at that, who would make the country unstable if there wasn't an heir soon? So was there any difference between her and Elizabeth, the beloved Virgin Queen, married to her country, overseeing prosperity and stability, clear-headed, who could be trusted to rule with the heart and stomach of a man? Nope, same woman. All that changed was her branding, and with it changed the perception of the people, and perception changes everything. That brings us to the point of this section. as I've been not so subtly hinting at. Has anyone noticed a little bit of a style change recently in Ariana post-home wrecking scandal? She's gone from Barbie sex kitten to anemic chic. Tragic sickness in women has been romanticized for centuries. Not gross sickness, ooh, like you can't look gross. Pretty sickness, well, you know, that type of tragic Victorian sickness that makes you weak and fragile and dreamy, that makes you look pale and ethereal and tragically beautiful, like the lovely Ophelia being driven to madness and dying in a very glamorous floral way. That's not a new thing. Even the whole, you know, heroin chic look of the 90s, the model look of the 90s, was kind of an offshoot of that. I think a lot of the appeal of this is someone beautiful but doomed. It seems awfully romantic, and that, you know, that she's also so fragile and helpless. It's pulling on all those damsel in distress strings. Look at her. She's so sad and delicate and weak and helpless, just helpless, and yet so pure, like a fading rose. Now, I don't know if this is necessarily a conscious echoing of this theme in Grande's new style. I wouldn't put anything past celebrity PR teams. That might be a reach. However, I do believe that there's been a conscious effort in styling her to make her seem fragile. Gone is the over-the-top bronzing with the big flashy ponytails and the thick eyeliner. Now she's pale, so pale, with bleached hair and eyebrows, more stripped back makeup, no sexually provocative chokers on her neck. In fact, often there's no jewellery there, and instead her delicate collarbones are on full display to really, you know, show how delicate and pale and sort of fragile she is. Everything about her new look makes her look demure and small, fragile and almost ill, but like, you know, ill in a pretty way. Forget the hot pinks. The colours that she wears now are more sombre and grown up. Monochrome, black and white, or fragile pastels. And if she does wear a bold colour like red, the red lips or the red dress, it only emphasises now like how pale and delicate she looks. I'm not getting across the full look because my hair's not bleached and really pale. So it's just contrasting with my hair a bit rather than, you know, just pale with the red. But yeah, it does. No more sky-high heels or thigh-high boots. Now the heels are lower, more understated, sensible. So that all of that might have sounded a bit critical and snarky, dare I say bitchy even. But I actually really do like her new style. I way prefer it to how she used to dress, and I think it suits her. But I also do not think that the timing of it is by chance. Sure, she's also been filming Wicked at the moment in her role as Glinda the Good Witch, which could be one explanation for why she dresses pale, but even then I think Glinda the Good Witch could be very in tune with her old, like, little girly pastel flower style. I mean, that's an explanation for why her hair and eyebrows are bleached for the role, but the new style change? I don't know. I don't think that's the entire reason for this switch up. The timing is just too convenient and too useful, and I think she's playing into it too much. Maybe it was an idea they had on the horizon a little while ago before the scandal broke, but I'm too cynical.
Of course, another possibility, though this one is unlikely, I think, is that this all happened from Ariana Grande naturally wanting to kind of finally grow up and change her style, perhaps prompted by meeting Ethan Slater and kind of changing her identity somewhat for a new partner and forming herself anew. To be that also wouldn't surprise me if it's kind of changing up your identities like a costume with like a new person, or wanting a new identity, thinking they're kind of going to change everything and who you are, but a little bit of a chameleon in that way. That wouldn't surprise me. That's also a possibility, but I think it's more calculated than that. However, also a possibility that maybe she genuinely did want to grow up and genuinely did fall in love, and it's all just so coincidentally happened that she's fallen in love at the same time, like really for the real this time, and fallen in love at the same time as she's growing up and having a style change.
Branding is so important. Everyone in the entertainment industry or who is successfully selling any type of product knows this. And celebrities are products, in a sense. They have to think of themselves in that way. Their team has to think of them in that way. How best to market them. And a huge part of that is style. For better or worse, we judge people on how they look, on how they dress. Some of these judgments we make about people based on their image will be fair, and some will be unfair. But we all do it. No matter how much you think you don't, it's almost impossible not to make hundreds of subconscious inferences about someone based on how they present themselves. Also, it's probably sensible to do this as well. Like, it's a shortcut for our brains to kind of figure out where we stand or what we can expect from someone or what certain things are telling us about maybe their behaviours or habits or personality type. Like, it could be wrong, don't judge a book by its cover, but also sometimes, you know, you got to market the cover in a way that is going to give you an accurate impression of the book. So sometimes, you know, it's a shortcut basically, and it could be wrong, but often it's correct. And also I think it's a necessary like part of human psychology. It's a necessary evolutionary thing that we've got to do to like immediately try and gather as much information we can on someone based on like a first impression. It's impossible. So my point there is it's like impossible to not do that, I think. But yeah, so we do. And of course with society and culture, there's lots of shorthand ways. Because also, whether consciously or unconsciously as well, people are intentionally trying to tell you things about themselves by how they dress. So it also makes sense to make inferences based on that because they're kind of trying to get that across. Certain things about how they present themselves. I'm a professional. I'm dressed as a professional. I want you to take me seriously. And you go, oh, I'll take them seriously. It's a language. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure, like, and again, so we got all these cultural shortcuts where we can go to that if I wear this, it's going to give this impression about me. So it's like, it's a language that, you know, we speak to each other, basically, based on symbols. It's symbolism. It's a language of, like, symbolism, really. And I'm pretty sure they've done studies, haven't they, that people are more likely to trust someone in a suit, for example, or in a white lab coat. Why? Because we associate that imagery with certain things. If you were going to hire someone for a job, the well-dressed guy in clean clothes probably makes you think that he's more reliable, organised, professional, and ready for the job, willing to do the job, than the guy who turns up in a torn t-shirt with stains on his trousers and knotty hair. Or if that's not helpful, think in terms of who you'd rather go on a date with. Branding yourself as a sex kitten can get you very, very far in the entertainment industry. Wearing certain types of clothing, like laced-up corset tops, chokers, kitten ears, thigh-high boots, bold makeup while suggestively licking a lollipop like a little girl, will convey a message to people. It just will. You're sexy, but also super sweet. You're probably not that smart. They're probably going to take you less seriously. They might think that you're shallow, that you're gullible, that you're endearingly dumb. I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying that's what most people are going to infer, probably, and make those like unconscious conclusions, draw those unconscious conclusions. So the whole sex kitten thing, by the way, this is different to just wearing revealing clothing. I'm talking very specifically, again, about the sex kitten look that we spoke about earlier in the video. The little girly thing mixed with the sexy thing. The kitten thing. It's when you mix cutesy and ditzy and innocent with sexually available. Belle Delphine is a very good current example of this. Extremely sexually provocative mixed with this wide-eyed innocence. It makes you seem both hypersexual but non-threatening and girly at the same time. You can get away with saying very sexually aggressive things, like in Grande's old song lyrics, and still come across as cute and sweet and cheeky rather than brash and vulgar and domineering. Like you're just a silly little girl who just wants to please a man and is only using her sexuality in a cheeky, harmless way to get what she wants. Like again, disturbing, I know, but like a little girl, rather than being seen as a calculating woman who has desires of her own and has a knowingness about her. Also, often with the sex kitten thing, you simultaneously appeal to a huge audience of girls with the sparkly pink princess look, specifically in Ariana Grande's case, and the, yas queen, slay, get what you want, but also be sexually appealing still. So it can be effective, hugely effective in the entertainment industry, and a really effective way to brand yourself and market yourself, as many people have found. However, when does the sex kitten bimbo act not work anymore? Well, probably when you're outed as being an alleged homewrecker. That's when lyrics like, quote, I know it ain't right, but I don't care, in songs titled Break Up With Your Girlfriend, I'm Bored, go from, I'm just a girl stealing boyfriends, I didn't know any better, oopsie, oops, I stole her man, oops, I'm just so sexy and cute, oops. It goes from feeling like that to feeling like, wow, so she's really a bitch then, huh? When your cutesy, sexy, provocative lyrics about stealing other women's boyfriends and taking what you want seem like they might be true, then you start to lose the very important innocence part of the sex kitten act. Then, rather than tantalising and cheeky and only seeming sexy because, you know, you're too ditzy to know better, that's when you start to come across as shameless. It's not so cute anymore, you know, like, oh, you might home wreck by accident because you're just too sexy and dumb to know better. No, now it becomes villainous. You're no longer the music industry's sweetheart championing girl power. Now you're a calculating, cold-hearted bitch.
Can you stay up all night? Fuck me to the daylight.
After that, the sexually charged lyrics go from the girl power icon who's using her sexuality as a symbol of girl power to crush the patriarchy and get what she wants from men in a fun way, to now she's seen as weaponizing that power to ruin a family just because she wanted a new toy. You get me?
I see it, I like it, I want it, I got it.
That is probably the point when a rebrand is in order. After a scandal like that, you just can't seem sexually provocative in the same way anymore. That makes people subconsciously think that you're desperately throwing yourself at other women's husbands, that you're bragging about how sexy you are, that you can steal any man. So you gotta cut that out, at least for a while. No more seductive crawling in lingerie while singing about how other women can't compare. That no longer reads like an empowered woman who knows her worth. No, that's not a good look after allegedly stealing a father away from his newborn baby and high school sweetheart. So now it has to be a wardrobe overhaul and tragic songs about how you're a misunderstood starlet and victim of the media. Fucking genius. She goes from albums called things like Positions to albums called things like Eternal Sunshine. Songs about, well, positions, and the, you know, whole I'm sexy and I know it and I get what I want, but also I'm a cute little girl vibe, even famously dressing as iconic mean girl Regina George in one of her music videos, and then also with lyrics bragging about money, sex, diamonds, and, quote, I see it, I like it, I want it, I got it. That whole thing, which is appealing to girl power, sex appeal, I'm a bitch, but I'm iconic and also still cute type of feminism, which was her previous branding. And which you can kind of get away with being like, oh, she's so savage, she's such a bitch, when you're like still cutesy and like feminist, girl power, iconic, so sexy, cute, icon. But now, after the scandal, that's when you can't do. Then you look shameless and cold and calculating. No. You're not girl power anymore. You're not a girl's girl. So then you gotta switch from the boss bitch babe feminism to suddenly now she's victimized feminism. There's no more crawling over tables in doggy position for a music video. No, now she's referencing a sad movie about a failed relationship. Now her hair and makeup is wispy and ghost-like, tragic-looking, with lyrics about being misunderstood and heartbroken but getting through it anyway. Her new look is sophisticated, demure, understated, stylish and classy. Or trying to be. When I showed my mother a photo of Grande's new look, bearing in mind my mum doesn't know anything about Ariana Grande, the first thing she said was, Carolyn Bessette Kennedy. And I said, what? And she said, Google it. And I did. And my mum was spot on. Ariana Grande is echoing Carolyn Bessette Kennedy in a way that can't be an accident. So for those young uns who don't know, Carolyn, I don't know how to pronounce the middle part. Bassett. Someone's going to correct me and get really mad. Carolyn Bessette Kennedy was a publicist for Calvin Klein, and she married John F. Kennedy Jr. She was a style icon in the 90s, known for her minimalist, effortless, old money, yet also very modern laid-back look. I've heard her referred to as the American Princess Diana. Her look was very timeless and has hardly dated. It still looks fashionable now. She died tragically in 1999 at only 33 years old, killed in an infamous plane crash alongside her husband and sister. Hence the even stronger Diana comparisons. So I did know about this plane crash. I knew that was a thing. I just didn't specifically know much about Bessette Kennedy. I didn't know much about her herself before researching this. She was before my time. I don't know what you want me to do. Sorry. But so why is all of this relevant? Because, as my mother instantly pointed out after being shown only one picture of Ariana Grande and without knowing anything about her, she is absolutely channeling Carolyn Bessette Kennedy. Which I think only adds to my point of this being a very clever and intentional rebrand, if not by Grande herself, then by skillful stylists and marketing managers who know exactly how important a look is to convey a message. Hey, look, you can say that fashion is frivolous, but all of us are hugely influenced by the visual trickery of how someone presents themselves. I'm about to turn into Miranda Priestley and give the cerulean monologue in a minute. I can feel it. But she has a point. As toxic as the fashion industry is, it's powerful for a reason. So, okay, I don't think Ariana Grande's team are literally trying to make her fans think of Carolyn Bessette Kennedy, you know, the elegant modern-day princess who, one could argue, has become in death a symbol of true but tragic young love. While having such an association could make Grande's seedy infidelity scandal seem doomed and romantic rather than trashy, that would be a pointless endeavour given that most of her fans are too young to know who Carolyn Bessette Kennedy is, which I think might be part of the point, because really only my mother's generation and older will recognise the look and who it's from. So I don't think they're literally trying to make that association and make people go, oh my god, Carolyn Bessette Kennedy, that's who she's channeling. But the general idea is there, if you think about what kind of Carolyn Bessette Kennedy's look gives us, what it stood for. So what does it give us? Old money, sophisticated, elegant, timeless, a little out of reach. She looks classy, put together, but like in an effortless, completely just relaxed way. She looks chilled out and grown up. So if one were to emulate her style, you might associate such a sophisticated person with being above petty, trashy gossip. Someone above drama who doesn't stir the pot or attention seek. Someone too private and too sensible to, oh, I don't know, very publicly go after another woman's husband, for example. Going from sex kitten Barbie to old money is quite the change in aesthetic, especially in the way that she did it. And I think it's an attempt to visually distance herself from drama, Ariana Grande, I mean. Rightly or wrongly, we associate women, generally, who dress like this as dramatic, attention-seeking, vain, brash, shit-talking, and trashy. And, rightly or wrongly, we associate old money with staying away from scandal, not causing problems, being happy, staying out of the spotlight, and free from scandalous gossip. Demure and classy. The type of woman who wants to keep her private life private and is unfairly hounded and targeted by the media when she just wants to do charity work and enjoy weekends in the country. Someone whose actions are beyond reproach. I just think this is so clearly the vibe Ariana Grande is going for. Her signature now is demure pearl earrings, for Christ's sake. I don't know how many times I've seen her wear them. This is from the girl who used to dress like this. Which isn't a problem, but it's just very drastic and convenient and sudden and in a response to a very specific scandal. I think her team is trying to communicate a very clear message with this new look. I do have to say as well, while I do like Ariana Grande's new look, Googling images of Carolyn Bessette Kennedy was a mistake in the sense that it's just going to sound, this is going to sound mean now. I think because her like natural style, she's just got such a presence in the photographs. Like I was fascinated by her, by just the photos of her. It seems so much charisma that you can see just from the photos. Such a lack of vanity about her as well, I think. It makes it just makes me go, oh, she just carried the look off way better. Not that she like physically looks better or anything, I'm not saying that, but just I think she just carried it better, effortlessly stylish in a way that I think difficult to emulate. Ariana is giving fragile, wounded princess, delicate and childlike, but not childlike how she used to be, you know, silly and babyish and cutesy. This is a reserved, delicate, wise, but still needing to be protected child. A little bit of Audrey's fragility and youthfulness, you know? Like Ariana, she's giving now in demeanour, interviews, style, a tormented socialite whose only crime was falling in love. I just feel like there's intentionally something a little bit tragic about her look. Sophisticated but sad. And the look works in perfect cohesion with her new album. Eternal Sunshine paints her as the victim. A tormented, pained soul who has suffered for love. But not a mopey victim. Too much of a pity party would have had people likely turn against her. This is a very subtle victim who triumphs album, really. A tragic heroine who has been unfairly maligned and cast as the villain when she's just living her life, but she's bursting through as a strong yet fragile butterfly, reborn, cleansed, and free now from judgmental people and their small-minded opinions. Such a pure soul. Watch her go. Watch her fly. Even down to her very delicate, fairy-like Met Gala look, which I liked. Very fair. You could say, yeah, it's channeling Glinda the Good Witch, maybe, perhaps. But as I say, it's very, like, in keeping with this fragility that she's, like, oozing now. Rather than the little girly, the bows, and the like, cutesy little girly thing. Now it's this kind of fragile, delicate. Just, she's so like a little doll, like a china doll. Yeah, still this fragile butterfly. She's so delicate. Just be careful with her. I like the look. I liked her Met Gala look, but yeah. This is just completely, it's so vastly different from her old look and her new look. I think it's just really interesting to look at that and how you can convey such a strong perception of yourself through that. But yeah, it's not the pity party victim thing. It's the she's being reborn, cleansed thing. There's enough optimism in Eternal Sunshine, the album, to get you to root for Grande. The theme of the album is very clearly about healing, which I think is a bit misplaced, as she seems to be the one who always causing the harm, but okay, she's the brave, wounded soldier. Fine. And, you know, as shameless in many ways as the song Yes And was, and is, yes and, I did all these things, and, there's also, there's a fragile defiance about it, which is really in keeping with this whole kind of new theme she's giving off. Again, it's shameless, but it's also a song about healing and finding yourself in a, quote, dark situation and pulling through to hold your head up high despite everything. It's very Joan of Arc. The fragile defiance. You little fighter, you. Oh, she's so delicate, but little fighter. It's a vibe. It's a bit Cinderella. Save me, but also, I'll be okay. I'll pull through and find joy anyway. There's a lot of that. I mean, truly, I respect it. I respect the outstanding rebrand to manage to get the public to see her as a fragile, demure, classy flower who stays out of drama and is being victimized, rather than the shit-stirring, boyfriend-stealing, trash-talking, sexually provocative, as in she can't compare to me, and bratty sex kitten thing that was her previous public image. And yet, having made that switch, and yet still capitalising on the little girl effect, the cutesy little girl effect that she always had as part of her brand, but just in a very different way. It's gone from like sex kitten little girl in the sense of, oopsie, my skirt just came up and I sucked on this lollipop, to childlike, the wise child, like I said, the kind of demure and sad, sickly Victorian child, full of wise quotes and ponderings on the sad nature of the world, but how they'll find optimism anyway. It's very Tiny Tim. That's what it is. She's Tiny Tim. That's our branding. Figured it out, except with sex appeal. It's Tiny Tim. Oh, father, don't worry that I can't walk and Mr. Scrooge is so mean. At least we're together. Merry Christmas, everyone. Tiny Tim. She's Tiny Tim. You see how the childlike switch has been, yeah, okay. But not quite Tiny Tim, because she's still got the little princess aspect. Still a little princess. Just a tortured one now, rather than a spoiled one. I think there's a strong argument to be made that the behaviour Ariana Grande is exhibiting is the natural balance to red pill men. She is not only what a lot of them imagine all women to be, but she would be, I believe, the natural outcome of the kind of behaviours that they're encouraging in women. Not thinking for yourself, going along with things, being easily mouldable, demure. This is what I've said time and time again. I'm telling you, obedient women don't exist. That's not a thing. That's not a thing that happens. How many people have to say it? How many wise people with their history have to say it? Like, it just becomes manipulative. I don't know how. It just becomes underhand. If that's what it turns into, is manipulative underhand tactics. Pushing that, and it's very specific. I'm talking about the very like narrow, like fresh and fit view. That will not result in an angelic tradwife type of woman. It will result in this is going to be rude now, but infantilized, vain, selfish women who, because they're not allowed, then they've not allowed to be autonomous beings, and because you want their entire self-worth to rely on male validation, the natural outcome of this is women who will fall back on underhand tactics, faux innocence, and their looks to manipulate people, and who will constantly chase male validation. As in, one man is not going to be enough. And this is what I mean from this fresh and fit, very specific fresh and fit kind of ideology and viewpoint. Because what they kind of want is for a woman to get her worth from him as the man, for her to, have not really much self-esteem, unless for what comes from him, from her man. Problem is, if you're telling them, you kind of want these women to believe, and you're telling them that their entire value is derived solely from what they can give a man, that's their worth, that's all you're worth. Who are you to me? What's your sex appeal to me? What's this to me? That is very much the fresh and fit ideology. The problem with that is if their husband turns his attention away from them for too long, or they're feeling he's losing interest, or just if it gets a little bit stale, a little bit boring, what will happen is these women will either wallow in meaninglessness and question their entire existence, if this is where they're getting their whole self-worth, or they can avoid that by engaging with another man to get validation again. Be careful what you wish for, is what I'm saying. The fresh and fit type guys are asking for women and want women to base their whole identity around a man, but I don't think you're thinking through what that actually means in practice. Human beings need purpose. And I know lots of red pill podcasts like to present women as if they don't have complex thoughts and opinions and feelings just like men do. But women aren't actually dolls, I'm afraid. And if you expect a woman who thrives solely on male validation to also be solely devoted to you, that's probably not going to work out, because you're quite literally competing, not with other men, but with her need to be valued as a human being. That's what you're competing with. You're not competing with other men, you're competing with her need to be valued as a human being. See how long you can compete with that, because that's deep and that's powerful. Probably the most powerful driving force of a human being. And if another man comes along that makes her feel like her value as a human has been upped, it doesn't matter how rich and handsome and irreplaceable or domineering you think you are, and how submissive and passive you think she is, that other guy will win. Because it's not him you're competing with, it's her own existential dread. She'll probably flip from relationship to relationship and look for happily ever after. Be careful what you wish for. And again, this is specifically because I'm not trying to tar everyone with the same brush, but specifically definitely the fresh and fit guys and what I've heard them say. Like Myron's advice with keep your girlfriend afraid. Like, you need to keep her afraid. Which was interesting because he also implied that, being afraid physically is not necessarily a bad thing. Threat of being physically afraid. That's really good advice for men with their girlfriends, Myron. But also just keep her afraid in general, that you're going to leave, that you're going to walk out, that she's on her toes. And I've heard Andrew Tate say stuff like that as well. It's important because they're confusing respect with fear. That's not the same thing. I think these are men who are not worthy of respect. They know they're not worthy of respect. They know they can't earn respect. They've got to demand it like a child. You don't command it, you don't earn it, so you demand it. Like a little baby having a tantrum and trying to scare people into respecting you, but that's not how respect works. They just fear you. Anyway, so that's where that advice comes from. Pathetic cowards.
Respect? One of the mandatory ingredients for respect, you guys want to know what it is? Fear.
Of losing.
Fear. Whether it's physical violence or of loss. But the point is that woman needs to be scared.
But that, keeping on her toes, or keep her scared, is she going to leave? Am I going to leave? Is she not? Like, you need to keep your girl scared, and on her toes, and fear's good, she needs to be worried you're going to leave her, and all of this. Okay, maybe for a while, bearing in mind as well, none of them have had long-term relationships, all these men giving this advice. But maybe for a while, you might feel like you've got the power in that dynamic. Maybe for a while, she'll be kept on her toes. You'll feel important because you found a woman who bases her entire identity around you and gains validation from what she can bring you, or a man. Literally, though, all it takes is for another man to come along and show her more attention, and she'll probably be gone. Because she's not with you for you. She's with you for her own sense of self-worth via what she's bringing to a man. And if someone else makes her feel more valuable, more important, less constantly anxious, in moments where you're turned away from her freaking out, all it takes is someone charming to come along at that time, she'll probably leave you. If you want a quick thrill, right? Like you know, of the sort of a short, intense relationship with an insecure girl who bases her whole sense of self on you, making you feel powerful. Follow Myron's advice, I'm sure it'll work. And you'll also probably end up in hell, but go for it, whatever. If, as a lot of these people claim, they want a real lasting relationship, it's not going to last. I could probably see several outcomes from that. I'd say either she'll put everything, if she has kids, into like her children, and kind of you'll become less important and irrelevant in her life, and everything, her meaning will completely go to her kids, and not in a healthy way. I mean, like, yeah. Or she'll leave you for someone else, someone more impressive or who makes her feel more special, because it's not love or real connection there. Or she will outgrow you when she grows up. And I'm tempted, I'm going to reel myself in and not talk about that now, but more on that in my video on the Persephone archetype, because I think that can happen with a lot of women who are kind of like that at a certain point, and often it happens a bit later on in life when they kind of mature a bit from that and go, there's a trend, you know, of sometimes it works out, but a lot of the time also young women who, you know, when at that age, young, naive, malleable, moldable, who are in relationships with or marry much older men, a lot of them like they leave because they grow up and they outgrow you. But again, more on that in my video on the Persephone archetype, and how this infantilized, immature version of femininity is often the most widely accepted form of femininity, and how I think that can result in a lot of toxic feminine behaviours. And I'm not saying that to absolve women like Ariana of all responsibility, but I am saying certain environments create certain results in people, and let's try and minimise that. And I think in a lot of ways the red pill is creating its own monster. It's rewarding and creating the exact kind of women and the exact kind of feminine behaviours that they claim are so detestable. Like, if you know, obviously, like, infantilized, entitled women, I think, are kind of the natural outcome of the red pill and materialism. If you're teaching women to kind of treat themselves as objects who've got to go to the highest bidder, as a transaction. And as for the true Disney princess story, and this constant seeking of external validation in, like, the happily ever after, and there's nothing wrong with that. And, you know, I believe in happily ever afters, but there's, you know, it doesn't end there. But, you know, I believe in all romance and all that kind of thing. It's very lovely. But I think you can't externalize it. And I'm talking specifically to, like, young girls here, with, like, the Disney princess thing and the Disney princess dream and the happily ever after and the Disney princess ideal. You can't externalize the idea of the happily ever after to all men, to men in general, and think that someone's going to come along and sweep you off your feet and change your life, and that's it, forever and ever, happily ever after. You know, like the movies tell you. That's different. I'm not saying you can't want a relationship and think, oh, this person might be happy, they've changed my life, blah, blah. That's different, that's fine. It's when you're kind of looking for a saviour solely, or wanting to be rescued, and thinking that's going to make you happy and fix everything for you. And then you're going to, you know, have a happily ever after and wonder why this isn't fixing your life, and why this man is not coming, and why he can't fix your life for you, because no one can. And I think a lot of how Ariana Grande is, like, I think that's why it's interesting to talk about, because from so many different views, like, the branding's fascinating, but also I think a lot of it is, like, the behaviours as well, genuinely an encouraged trend of how to see relationships, treat relationships, or see them as a little girl in society, and she's kind of, seems to me, stuck in that a bit of a childish mentality of seeking the happily ever after, the big fireworks moment, rather than, you know, the real life. But anyway, that's all I've got for now. Thank you very much for watching. Come back and check in on my videos on the Persephone archetype if you're interested in hearing more. I really talk about and delve into this kind of archetype, because there are positives about it as well. I don't want to sound like I'm just like, there's a lot of good things that come from it, and I just find the whole topic just really fascinating. And this video was so much longer, and then I had to realise I had loads of different videos, and this video is already really long. Anyway, I don't know, I felt like this was a bit of a weird topic, because I didn't know where I was going when I started writing the video. So I hope you got something from it. I hope you somewhat enjoyed. Feel free, if you'd like to support the channel, to hop on over to my Patreon. There are extra clips from long videos that I cut out. There's videos on a whole host. Go check it out, see if there's anything you fancy. There's also an informal book club that we do over there, which is quite fun. I really like it. And just other videos and other stuff. So, you know, if any of these videos catch your eye, think about supporting me on Patreon. And also check out the sponsor of this video, Aura. The link is down in the description box. Thank you very much everyone for watching, and look after yourselves.